All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining live. I see we got Shams here, Trev. It's exciting. How you doing, Brian? Oh, okay. Brian's got a cough. I was like, let's go.
Sorry.
Let me press it.
The worst. It was a sneeze.
The sneeze didn't come. Like the sneeze hadn't made itself known yet.
No,
Wow.
I didn't know it was
really
coming.
snuck up on you.
Yeah.
Hey, the Devils just scored. You needed that.
Trev's. Uh-oh. Our supervisors here. The accountability czar is in the building.
He has access after the fact too, but yeah.
Yeah.
Guess,
A little extra pressure.
Okay, well, let's. But it's also good. Maybe he can like call us out on the show before we say something really dumb, and then we can edit it out.
Yep.
Like, are you sure you want to? Are you sure that's your take? Like, maybe you're right. All right. Let's do this. Okay. Oh, if you have some nose stuff, we can.
Oh,
wait a
Jack
moment.
Hughes gold is bad news though.
Oh, you have some very specific things you need. You need like the Devils to win.
I need the
but without
Devils
Jack
to
Hughes.
win with Timo Meyer. No, sorry, with Nico Hischier and without Jack Hughes.
Okay, Timo Meyer got a point,
Oh.
but you're saying no. You need Hischier.
I don't need my. I meant Hischier. Oh,
Bummer.
now I'm projected to lose by 10 all of a sudden.
So maybe I shouldn't do that intro I was planning on doing. Okay.
I mean, I'm having a great week. What's your score?
I'm 247 to 185.
Oh, okay.
What are you at?
I'm 235. 234.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Norm, you and I, same team tonight. I think there's somebody else who it can't be. It can't be Hughes. Oh, or Palat. But like, come on. Do you think Palat has was Palat in Anaheim? Why do I think Palat was in Anaheim?
No, he was on Tampa Bay, and then he went to New Jersey.
Straight to New Jersey. So
Yeah,
I'm confusing him with another Andre Kasha.
Oh yeah, you loved him.
That's who I was
your
thinking.
favorite.
I like. You know what? I've liked Andres in the past. I like Andre Pavlich. I like Andre.
You liked Andre Pavlich?
Kasha?
I thought you said he was like the worst goalie. Oh, but then I guess when he started to like become too like known for being bad, then you would be like, actually.
He always seemed like he was completely unreliable. But I think I helped. My take on him was that it was not him. Like it wasn't his fault.
Right, of course.
That he should be good, but then he never really rewarded me for saying that. I'm ready. If you are, I'm not anticipating any further interruptions.
Okay, I'm gonna start, and let's do this. I'm gonna just say how I'm nervous about how I made a trade. And that'll be my joke.
Okay.
All right.
Maybe you need to leave the it has to be a joke sphere.
I usually don't make a joke. Sometimes I just say stuff.
Notable moment.
Notable. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest-running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys, one of whom just made a trade and now is, seeing the person I traded going off. I don't know if that's a relatable feeling, but it's a little like, okay, he's still on my team now, so I should be happy, but also I hope I didn't make a huge mistake. I'm your host, Dylan Dubrovsky, and with me to break down the past week of NHL action, we've got a lot to get to. I'm really excited to talk to my very good friend, the Poobot Prognostication, the IPP MVP, the fantasy hockey robot himself, Brian Cum. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. I'm sweating out the end of this couple matchup with MJ's boss team. I kept trying to shake MJ through the week. MJ would not go, and now MJ is up by about 5.5 points. A lot of players still in action, and I went to the matchups page on Yahoo just to see where things are at, and the live updating is it's a little much for me. It's very intense to watch the green. It's fun sometimes, But when the stakes are really high and also like it turns green, it's like, oh, something happened. But it's like, oh, like Markstrom made a save. So like 0.35. It's like I'm going to need a lot of that to happen.
Right.
So when the thing turns green and it's just a small event, I feel like it's a disproportionate stimulus to what actually happened. So I'm gonna put it away for a minute and check in later. I think is the best move.
You think it should be like kind of Google Sheets when you have like, as the points are more, it should be like a brighter green.
Yeah.
It should have been like a very
a light green. A light green for the smaller point totals, like a hit or a shot or a save, and then a big green, maybe with like some confetti
if you get a goal.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, we should definitely report to Yahoo and see if they can help that.
They always are open to listening to feedback. There's so many ways to get at them.
Yeah, well, good luck in your matchup. I know that your opponent has Jack Hughes. My opponent also has Jack Hughes, but it looks like I'm going to be going 3-0 here, I'm happy to say. I know for you, that goal might actually end up being a killer for you against the Ducks, too. How is it that New Jersey is only tied 1-1 with the Ducks when the Anaheim has Reimer in net? I have a feeling by the time we're done the show, it's going to be like 6-1 for New Jersey, and I think if you're hoping for Jack Hughes to not go off, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I need Heischer to keep up with Hughes, and I'd also like Anaheim to at least pretend to play. Like last night on Saturday, I didn't stream in Jonathan Quick because I'm like, oh, like New Anaheim on the road against like arguably the best, like a top 5 team in the league for sure in New York. Like they're gonna get like 11 shots, and they took 30 plus on him, and tonight they're gonna give like Markstrom like 4. They already have more than that, but it's going to feel that way all night.
Fantasy hockey, it's hard. I will say I streamed in Jonathan Quick. Okay, I guess things are going my way this week, so I shouldn't rub it in here. But yeah, we've got a lot to get to here on the show. Like I mentioned, I did make a trade, so I will just say really quickly, Brian, that I traded away Leon Draisaitl. Real blockbuster. The trade came to me. I wasn't looking to do this, but the Pasternak manager came to me and offered Pasternak and Hurdle for Draisaitl and Matt Barzal. So I'm giving, definitely the higher secondary player in terms of their draft position and giving Barzal, and I guess downgrading to Hurdle, though if you look at what Barzal's been doing lately, and we'll talk about it on the show, maybe it's not as much of a downgrade, but I obviously had Pasternak higher than Draisaitl. Draisaitl having himself a game, and I'm sure this is what people tune in for on the Monday morning to get the mid-Sunday game updates, but the Oilers are down 2-1, but Draisaitl is doing pretty well. A goal and 5 shots. Where were these 5 shots all season? If he was doing that, then I would definitely have liked him just as much as Pasternak. So obviously we'll have to see how that all shakes out. But Brian, let's get into everything. Of course, Keeping Karlsson, proudly presented by DobberHockey.com, the #1 website for all your fantasy news and notes. I love the daily ramblings. I love frozen tools, which we use to prep the show. It's the best. Dobber Hockey. But okay, the plan for today is I got, the classics. I got some outcheries for you, some really interesting players finally coming back, some playing their first games of the season. Got some injuries. Then I'm going to hit you with a bunch of cold streaks. I think we're like enough into the season now where we can give a legit take on if some of these guys who are starting slow are actually just not going to be as good as we expected, or if we're like not worried at all. And then we'll end with some hot streaks, and that's our plan, okay? So I think we're going to have a lot of fun. Let's start with the outcheries. I want to go to, actually, Brian, let's just go to New Jersey, since we already started there to talk about this game against the Ducks. Luke Hughes is back. And Brett Pesce, by the way. Though obviously Brett Pesce, a lot less fantasy relevance. But Luke Hughes is a guy who was definitely drafted in all of the cupful divisions. A lot of people assuming he was just going to step right back up to the top power play. It was a bummer when he got hurt in training camp. So far, he has not gotten to the top power play. He did somehow still get a secondary power play assist in the first game. Secondary power. I don't know why I said secondary. A power play assist from the second power play against Detroit. So far, nothing for Hughes today. So we'll see how this game shakes out. But yeah, only 1 assist in, I guess, 2.5 games so far. Meanwhile, Dougie Hamilton still holding power play 1. Do you think that Dougie proved enough to Sheldon Keefe to let him hold the job? Or do you think this is going to be the kind of thing that it's going to switch like once Hughes, sort of like gets up to speed? Because I guess the corollary question is, of course, like all these people who drafted Luke Hughes had him in IR and then, took him out. Like, how long of a leash do you even give this guy? Because if he's not on the top power play, I feel like as good as he's going to be one day, he's not really providing you much value right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really tough question. Like, it's not a tough question. It's a tough situation in New Jersey where between Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes, I don't know that I can really put my money down on either one, nor do I want to end up like there's a reason I didn't draft either of them. And Luke Hughes, I could have, right, just to stash. I didn't get him in time. But you asked, did Dougie Hamilton prove enough in his time on the top power play? He had 3 power play points in 11 games. Is that that's like a 20 power play point pace or a little bit above for a power play one quarterback? It's meh. Like on a top end team, I'd want to see more. I don't know if Sheldon Keefe is happy with what he saw. The thing that really stands out for Dougie Hamilton is that he has just 1 point in 11 games at 5-on-5, and also this 1 point at 5-on-5 and Hamilton's 3 power play points. They all came in a very recent 4-game point streak. He was pointless for a whole bunch of games to start the season, Dougie Hamilton, but throughout that time, he was shooting at least. Hamilton has 4 or more shots on goal in 8 of the 11 games he's played. So he's got that going for him. But the thing is that I don't trust anyone in this situation. Like, I don't trust New Jersey as like a team or an organization to pick a guy and stick with him. I don't trust Dougie Hamilton to play in a way that makes it impossible to move him away. For what it's worth, the top power play looked fine with Dougie Hamilton, but I don't know if he's a difference maker or enough of a difference maker to guarantee himself that spot. So I guess where I land with your question is I like Dougie's shots. I want those to continue. He's going to need things to start going a little better for him at 5-on-5 to make up for any potential lost power play time. And Luke Hughes could very well take the job and be near irrelevant while he does it, which was the case for stretches last year too. So it's weird. New Jersey has such a great power play, and yet I don't feel like I can really go deep on investing on either of the potential quarterbacks in Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes.
Yeah, it's like on one hand, you look at Dougie Hamilton with like 4 points in 12 games and holding top power play. You think like, oh, buy low time. Like he's for sure not going to do this badly at even strength moving forward if he keeps getting the big like 20 plus minutes a game and holding top power play and taking all those shots. But then now there's that little risk that he could get bumped from the power play, which would hurt his value. All of that said, I'd still probably like if I guess it depends how low the price gets. I feel like the dam will break at some point for Hamilton. If he was significantly altered in his like abilities after the injury, you would think that he wouldn't be playing as many minutes, wouldn't be taking as many shots. That's definitely going to be an interesting thing to watch, like the defenseman over New Jersey. But you're right, like no one has really grabbed a hold yet. But of course, for Luke Hughes specifically, it's been a very short time. We'll see how this game finishes up against the Ducks. Of course, the other thing we'll see is if Jacob Markstrom can hold on and have himself a good game, because he's had a really rough stretch lately. He let in 4 goals against the Red Wings in a loss. He let in, I'm talking about Markstrom, 6 goals against in that crazy game against Washington, where Washington won 6-5. Before that, Markstrom had been like okay, like he had a couple good games, a couple like 3 goals against, 4 goals against games. Obviously, like New Jersey was really hoping that their goaltending questions would finally be solved by bringing in this veteran. But so far, we're looking at an .890 save percentage. We'll see how things play out today against a weak Anaheim team. You'd hope at least he could pull out the win for that Anaheim team, by the way, on a back-to-back also. But yeah, Brian, I know you invested in Jacob Markstrom. I'm curious to know, like, how nervous are you about him, or is he just the kind of guy where you're just like, whatever, he's cold right now, he's going to be fine, he's still going to have a fine season, nothing to get too upset about?
Yeah, it's been 2 bad starts for Markstrom. So I don't want to like ring all the alarm bells for him, but on the whole, Markstrom hasn't been great. At 5-on-5, he's got a .901 save percentage. That's bad. He's playing 12 save points below his expected Delta Fenwick save percent, or 12 save points. Sorry, he's playing at a point. He's playing 12 save points below his expected Fenwick save percentage. That's really bad. I mean, it's a small sample, so I'm not going to like overreact to anything. And I think what I'm writing this up to for Markstrom is that this is still in the new team adjustment period. It's still active, IMO. And I just hope it's not active for too long. Like I remember when Bobrovsky moved to Florida, that was like a 3-year adjustment period for everyone to like figure out the best system or match or whatever. For Markstrom, I hope things click sooner than that. And I'm thinking back to Toronto and whether any goaltenders really thrived under Sheldon Keefe. and I'm blanking. Like, I don't know that anyone really did, but I also don't know if they had anyone quite of Jacob Markstrom's caliber. So I get like Freddie Anderson was there for a while, and I think that was working when he was healthy enough.
I mean, Jack Campbell did something to earn that big contract from the Oilers.
Yeah. But did he do it for that's something for very long? I'm looking at everything, and you know what, the silver lining here for anyone who's a Markstrom manager is that Jake Allen is an 896 at save percentage at 5-on-5, which is worse. Like at least Jake Allen. I mean, it's a low bar to clear, but at least Markstrom is outplaying Jake Allen.
Right.
And like, it's not like Jake Allen isn't making a case to get more starts. So I'm gonna trust and hope that things will work out. And I think there is a bit of trust in this equation, but also a fair amount of hope too, that everything just does work out the way us Markstrom managers hoped it would when we drafted him.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like these freaking goaltenders, right? So hard to predict. Like Markstrom could end up fine, but I think a lot of people, went to the year being like, this is going to be great. Like, I feel like that's always the sign. It's like a goalie going to a new team is like, okay, now he's the for sure starter on a good team. Like, what could go wrong? And we'll see. Like you said, it's still early. I did, how Brian, I'm still on the Twitter, even though I know everyone says it's terrible. I have fun. I searched for Markstrom just to kind of get, what the vibes are on him currently from Devils fans. I love getting the fans' vibes. It's fun. That's one thing that website is pretty good for. And there were a lot of people being like, Markstrom sucks, Jake Allen sucks, we know what we need to do. And then it was like gifs of Nico Dawes being like, when are we calling up Nico Dawes to finally save us? So maybe that's a dark horse, but I don't think that's in the current plans.
No, we're past the Akira Schmid and Nico Dawes days. I
see.
swear, we must be.
I mean, maybe Allen, I don't think Markstrom gets sent down. What if Allen does so badly that he gets sent down and they bring up Nico Dawes and then he starts challenging? But anyway, then we're getting ahead of ourselves. Here, let's talk about something positive on your fantasy team, Brian. I know you have Nico Hischier. He's been so incredible. Hischier is having so far like a career year. And this is a guy who's had already a long career, but he's never been more than like point per game. But like so far, we're looking at 11 points in 12 games. So I guess it is actually kind of in line with what he's done lately. But I don't know. It's just felt like, I guess it's because it's mostly goals. I'm just seeing a lot of Nico Hischier goals, 8 goals in those 12 games. Jack Hughes has, I don't want to say struggled, but hasn't been like as incredible as people hope for to start the year. I asked you last week about Matt Boldy and his amazing start and like wondering like how close or how far is he really even from Kaprizov, where Kaprizov goes like early first round and then Boldy's like second, third round. Maybe they're actually pretty similar. I'm wondering if I could ask the same question about Hughes and Hischier. And by the way, like I do think Kaprizov is like still a lot better than Boldy, even though Boldy's incredible. Hughes and Hischier, I would assume Hughes is also amazing, but yeah, only 10 points in 12 games for Hughes. But that is actually just a 1 point difference. Maybe this is like not even great content. I don't know. Splitting hairs. Just curious to get the. Let's give some love to Nico Hischier for his amazing start.
Yeah, let's give some love to Nico Hischier and manifest a goal or 3 for him tonight against Anaheim. I love Hischier's 5-on-5 production. I think he probably can do even a little more there, but where he's really thriving is on the power play. Hischier has 4 points in 11 games plus an assist. It's funny because I say he's really thriving on the power play with 4 points there, and with Dougie Hamilton, I'm like, 3 power play points in 11 games. Is that really enough? But I think in a small sample, like 1 out of every 4 games, 1 out of 1 point every 3 games is different. Actually, sorry, I need to clarify. 4 power play goals in 11 games for Nico Hischier, plus the 1 assist. So that's why I said he's thriving. Those 4 power play goals have come on 12 power play shots. So that's a high shooting percentage. But we're seeing players. I don't know if we're starting to see more of this, and so I'm not closing the door on this being somewhat sustainable. But like a really good player on the power play can shoot 20 to 25% on a regular basis. But we're seeing like Sam Reinhart was one, Chris Kreider was another, Braden Point. In the last several years, we've seen players sustain a 30+% shooting percentage on the power play through a whole season. And I'm starting to wonder if some guys can act like if we figured out a way where some guys can actually do this. So we'll see. I don't know if that's going to be true for Nico Hischier, but he is shooting more and more dangerously, so that's great. I might expect to see some slowdown in power play production from Hischier, but I think some regression to the mean at 5-on-5 is going to help make up for it. I'm a believer. If you like, don't sell high on Hischier, buy high if you can.
Okay. I mean, I love the buy high. I just did a buy high of Tomas Hurdle trading for him after a big game. It's my new thing. I feel like it's like a noob move. Like it comes off as like you're not like a smart fantasy manager is like taking advantage of the players going off and selling them and like trading for the guys who we expected to do well that aren't doing well. But I don't know. I think there's something there sometimes with the buy high. And yeah, maybe the Heishier manager is thinking like, oh, time for me to cash in. I think there's something there where you could maybe get Heishier for cheaper than maybe you should be able to get based on what he's been doing so far. But okay, let's move on to another team. You mentioned the Toronto goaltending. Let's talk about the outjury over in Toronto. Joseph Woll is back. All the people who drafted him super excited to finally get a game out of him. And not great, unfortunately. Against St. Louis, he let in 4 goals on 26 shots. It's an 846 save percentage. So pretty weak in a loss against the Blues. The Leafs have now lost, 3 in a row, which is a bummer for them. Anthony Stolarz came in to play the next game against Boston, let in 4 goals himself. But anyway, okay, so now here we are. Woll is healthy. Stolarz is there. Do we what do we do here? Like, are we just going to assume 50? I'm going to assume that like they're going to go 50-50 for the next while. I don't know if we need to dive too deep. It's just guessing. Like Stolarz has been really good, but I still think Woll is the guy who they're going to want to give some games to. They just signed him to this contract. So I'm just going to guess they're going to alternate for a while. On GameDayTweets.com, I always have the goalie. We have a very detailed and complicated algorithm for guessing who the goalie start is going to be. And it's all powered by me marking each team a starter, a backup, and then whether or not I think they're alternating or not. And currently I've set Toronto to alternating. So my opinion of what they're going to do.
Okay, yeah, you can. I love you. That's a great little tidbit. You can get a sense of where Elon's head is at with goalies anytime you go to GameDayTweets.com. This is a moment really like not so much to talk about Joseph Woll because we're not going to judge him on like basically first game of the season recovering from injury, but this is more a moment to recognize how good Anthony Stolarz has been. There's been 27 goalies this season who've seen about 5 full games of work at least, and that's about like half a team's season so far who've played half their team starts or more. Stolarz leads all of those 27 goalies in Delta Fenwick save percentage. So how much better he plays in his expected Fenwick save percentage, and Stolarz is also tied for second in 5-on-5 save percentage. The guys above him are interesting. Like, it's always fun when I name goalie stats and then I say, and guess who's around them? And it's just like a bunch of random guys. So it's like, it's hard to
invalidates the stats.
Well, I always have to put out that disclaimer. No, these stats matter, and I think it's just still a small sample. And I think there is this thing where goalies like rotate. They should like who's having a good season and when. But he's tied for second with Alex Lyon in 5-on-5 save percentage, and number 1 with a little smaller sample size is Dustin Wolf. The whole top 10 is pretty wild, really. It's in 5-on-5 save percentage. It's Dustin Wolf, Alex Lyon, Stolarz, Dostal, Ottinger, Gustafsson, Samsonov, Lankinen, and then Hellebuck and Shesterkin. So we do have a few tier 1 goalies in there. I can't remember if we moved Ottinger out of tier 1 or not. I know I made the case that maybe he shouldn't be. He should be there, but he shouldn't. But a whole bunch of other guys. It's like tier 1 and tier 7 are hanging out in the top 10 of 5-on-5 save percentage.
Okay, well, good to know. We'll see how that shakes out moving forward.
Yeah. So Stolarz is playing like a starter, right? This is all to say, and it's just a matter of whether Stolarz can do this sustainably and for more than 6 games.
Yeah, and if they even give him the opportunity to do that, and that's going to obviously depend on how Woll does in the games he plays. So time will tell. If it's me, I'm not dropping Stolarz, even if I grabbed him with the plan to drop him once Woll came back. Like, I'd be holding, and you might have to grimace through a couple of weeks of like not getting so many games. But I think the upside is like there that he can establish himself as a starter. So I guess it depends obviously on your league settings. It's kind of like how I feel about a Union right now. Like, I'm not saying I'm 100% sure that a Union is like going to take the job and be like the Colorado starter for the majority of the season, but I feel like there's a chance that he can, and it would feel so crappy to like have had that guy and lost him and then have him be like in that spot that's so valuable. So it's tricky sometimes to weigh the long-term versus short-term strategy. I think a place where maybe you and I failed at that last week was talking about the OEL taking over on the top power play. I feel like I came in really hot. Like, Oliver Ekman-Larsson is on the top power play. This is huge. Pause the pod, go get him. I guess I don't regret that just because like it's possible he could have held it and that could have been huge. But I wonder if we should have spent more time talking about maybe now's a good time to reach out to a Morgan Riley manager and buy super low, because I'd imagine people were like really freaking out about what even is this guy's ceiling if he's not on the top power play. Well, suffice to say, Morgan Riley back on the top power play. Obviously, it could change again, right? Like maybe this is going to be an annoying thing where every single episode we do, we're going to be talking about who's quarterbacking the top power play in Toronto. But yeah, as of now, sorry for the alarm. We're back to the regular old 5 people on the top power play in Toronto. I will say Trev mentioned in the Discord that Toronto went 3.5 minutes without a shot attempt with Riley on the power play in the last game. Maybe that's a sign that they'll switch again. So I don't know. You could hold on to OEL a little longer if you want, but obviously the value goes down a lot. It's all about that power play.
All about that power play. I mean, so, you mentioned maybe the lesson was to reach out to the Riley managers, which I was one, and I was sending some trade offers, trying to get anything back for Riley. I was close to, I wasn't dropping him yet, but I was starting to consider it. And yeah, now I'm thrilled to see him get a second. Like, he was available for basically half the value, I think, of what he is while he's on the top power play. So whether or not, and you know what, Elon, maybe the advice now is to sell Riley while his value is back up. Like we don't know how this is going to settle. And I think, if you drafted Morgan Riley, I think we were talking about it before the season, saying, maybe this is the year the Leafs find somebody else to do the job. Like it could be Ekman Larson, it could be Liljegren. Liljegren's not even getting into the lineup though, so that's not much of a threat at the moment. But it always seemed like the Leafs wanted someone else, so I don't think Riley is ever 100% safe in that position. So if you do want to try and get out from that risk, maybe this is a window for you to do it. Or you can hang on and hope to enjoy the season-long ride.
Okay, so that's the Leafs. Let's move on now to another Canadian team over in Calgary. We're in the outjuries section. Obviously, I play a little fast and loose with these sections, right? I'm going to bring up a guy, then I'm going to talk about maybe someone else on that team as well. Get the bang for our buck when we travel somewhere to talk about a team. But yeah, Igor Sharangovich finally made his return for the Calgary Flames. Not too much to show for his first game back against Winnipeg. Calgary lost the game 5-3, and Sharangovich had no points, no shots, just a couple of hits. So barely avoided a cardio session, but I don't think that's of any solace to the people who were really excited to get him into their lineup. Still, if you look at the Calgary lines from that game against Winnipeg, they were rolling with Sharangovich, with Kadri and Kuzmenko, and then also Sharangovich was on the top power play with Kadri, Kuzmenko, Huberdeau, and Uyghur. So it seems like a really good spot. So probably you're going to want to hold on or grab him if he's in free agency, because you want a guy generally on the top line and top power play. Not sure if we really want to spend too much time digging into a single game there. Another guy though that's super hot in Calgary that I'm curious to get your take on is kind of in the Morgan Riley vein, or someone I've kind of left for dead once he was dropped off the top power play in Calgary. Rasmus Andersson, like going into drafts this season, I was like, why would I draft Rasmus Andersson? Like, yeah, he's good for blocks, but now that Uyghur has taken over on the top power play, like, what is Andersson gonna be, like a 30-point guy? Well, joke's on me. Dude's got 10 points in 8 games now. Anderson's getting points pretty much every single game. None on the power play. It's 10 points, all even strength, or maybe shorthanded. I don't know, but not on the power play. He's incredible. Like, what's going on here? How is Rasmus Andersson doing so well? Like, is this just for sure gonna disappear, or are you into him?
I think. Oh, sorry, I pushed the wrong keyboard shortcut. Okay, am I into him? Or do I think it's gonna continue? Yeah, Rasmus Andersson, I'm just going to say it like out loud again. 10 points in 8 games for Andersson. Who needs the top power play? He has no power. Who needs the second power? Who needs any power play time? 0 power play points for Rasmus Andersson, but 10 points in 8 games, beating out a whole mess of high-end forwards. So go off, Rasmus. A couple things that are powering this that are unsustainable. First, Rasmus Andersson has 4 goals on 13 shots, which is crazy for a forward, even crazier for a defenseman. He also has 6 assists. All of those are secondaries. And Anderson's also seeing an 18% on-ice shooting percentage at 5-on-5. Some of that is because of his own shooting luck, but those goals he's collecting secondary assists on, maybe some of those wouldn't normally go in over a larger sample. So this is not a moment for anyone with Rasmus Andersson to get complacent and think they've struck gold and they found value deep in the draft that's going to help them all year. This is a moment, if you has Rasmus Andersson, to appreciate what he's done for you and then see if you can ship him off for anything of value. Like, I wonder, it's probably too late for Morgan Riley. But like, I don't know, Justin Falk in St. Louis, or we'll talk about Brandon Montour down a little later, or Dougie Hamilton. Like, I would see what you can find. I don't know how much you will find for Rasmus Andersson, but don't expect this to continue. Elon, I'm with you. Like, I'm still going to sort of revert back to, what we were saying before the season, which is no top power play for Rasmus Andersson, then we probably won't have a whole lot of interest in him. He could be like a 0.5 point per game defenseman, best case. But yeah, try and sell. See what you can get.
Yeah, and obviously it's easier said than done. Like, it's easy to come on the podcast and be like, yeah, sell. But like, you could obviously, like, you'll have him. Otherwise, you could just have him help him. He'll help you win some matchups early on, like he has been, and then eventually, if he slows down, then c'est la vie. You didn't spend a high pick on him anyways. You got more than you even bargained for. But yeah, obviously, if you can package him and get like a Morgan Riley, I'd do it. Hey, you just go to the Riley manager and be like, look, maybe he's on the top power play. He could get bumped again. It's only Riley has 4 points on the season. Rasmus Andersson has 10. Who would you rather? You could take your pick. You could have Rasmus Andersson. You never know. I don't know. You have to be a good negotiator. I guess it's tricky. On the downside in Calgary, I will mention that we definitely came off pretty excited about Jonathan Huberdeau in the first episode of the season after he had that big 4-point game a couple games in. Yeah, he had a goal in his first game. Then he had 2 goals, 2 assists in the second game. Since then, 2 points in 6 games for Jonathan Huberdeau. All 1 or 0 shots. I guess there's 1 2-shot game there where he scored a goal against Carolina. So maybe I don't remember exactly what we said. Hopefully we were like, don't bank on this, because yeah, he seems like back to what he was doing last year, pretty much, which is like nothing, like maybe fringe rosterable, but like not like. I think I asked you the question on the show, like, are we looking at like Jonathan Huberdeau as being back to being like a star player in the league, like Calgary was hoping they were getting? Like, seems maybe not.
Yeah, so after 2 games, Jonathan Huberdeau had 6 shots, and my line was watch for the shots. Like, if they can keep coming, that would be exciting. Like, it was great to see Huberdeau start the season with 4 shots. And, actually in my mind, Elon, he did this he was shooting for longer, but I'm just looking at his first 2 games where Huberdeau had 5 points. He had 6 shots, and I was like, yeah, he's not going to score 3 times on every 6 shots, but hey, if he takes 3 shots a game, that's great. Well, guess what?
That was the big if. Yeah, we need to be more careful to not just be like...
if he gets shots, we're good, but make sure they're coming. He followed that up. Now he's his last 6 games, Huberdeau has 5 shots total. So that's... the thing is, he didn't keep up the shots, and you can let go of Jonathan Huberdeau. He had 5.5 minutes on the power play on Saturday, and nothing to show for it.
Oh, well. Yeah, same with Andrei Kuzmenko, by the way. And look, like, Calgary has a good schedule next week. I said this on Matchup Maximizer yesterday. Like, I do like the idea of, like, if some of these, higher end guys who were drafted are getting dropped in your league, and now they're in free agency, and like for good reason, they're on super cold streaks, but they're like going into a good week. Like, maybe that's a good stream, right? Because you get to take a chance on them, hoping they could bounce back a bit, and you're getting volume. If they end up not being so great, they might still give you something just because they have a good schedule. So like, if a Huberdeau or a Kuzmenko are out there in your free agency, I think it may be worth a shot just to get those 4 games from the Flames next week. But yeah, I'm not banking on too much. So hey, with Sharon Govich back, maybe that top power play gets a jolt. We'll have to wait and see. Next outjury, Brian, another guy who I'm worried he may just not be worth rostering, Devon Toews over in Colorado. Nice to see him back in the lineup. Obviously, and Colorado was really hurting. And hey, they've started winning games since he's come back. I don't know if that's like whatever correlation versus causation. Maybe that's more to do with Anunin. Maybe just the whole team is playing better. I don't doubt that Devon Toews has a lot more value than just getting points for the Avalanche. But yeah, as far as a fantasy asset, it's 2 pointless games for Devon Toews. So he's down to now like 1 assist in 4 games overall on the season. But I'm just being negative here because I'm building the narrative. Maybe you're going to tell me that, look, like Devon Toews last year paced for 50 points, and there's no reason not to expect him to be a 50-point defenseman moving forward. And if you drafted him as hold on, it's a very small sample size. So what's our take? Should the Devon Toews managers be ready to like move on, or do you think that you're still expecting him to get the same 50-ish point pace that he's had the last couple of years?
Yeah, he's been Devon Toews has been so inconsistent. So I'm not gonna like go nuts, like give up completely on Toews. It's gonna be more like you said. Like it's been 4 games. He started the season late. he's continuing this. Sorry, he started the season on time, then missed time all like he got injured real quick, and now he's coming back. Let's give him a minute, all right? And as for that's all I'm saying. I don't know for sure that Devon Taves is going to be worth rostering all season long, but he's been a 50-point player the last 2 seasons with like almost 25 minutes a night on average, a couple shots, a couple blocks, a hit. That's good. And so I wouldn't give up hope, especially if you're in a league with like a really scarce, depleted pool of free agent defensemen. I wouldn't give up hope on Devon Taves yet.
All right, and yeah, I'm with you. I'd give him a bit more time, especially like you say, if D is scarce. With the forwards on Colorado, it's like we might be getting a big insurgence soon. Like first of all, Ross Colton. It looked like there was an injury scare, but sounds like he's fine and he's going to play today. Colorado's playing later tonight, for what it's worth, against the Sens. So maybe we'll get a few of the pieces of data from that game before we finish off the show. So Ross Colton, he's been on fire, but like Jonathan Drouin is apparently day to day now, so he might be back soonish. Lehkonen has been practicing. I'm curious once everyone is back, and I don't even know. Like again, this is more just a question, just to like have it on our minds, not to like say that I expect Brian to be an oracle and figure it out. But like once those 3 players are all in the picture, Lehkonen, Drouin, and Colton, and then obviously they have McKinnon, Ranson. Like there's not room for all 5 of those forwards on the top power play. I feel like Lehkonen is getting back on that top power play. That's just like a strong hunch. I think I even saw a tweet saying he's been practicing like for the power play. So I'm going to assume it's between Ross Colton and Jonathan Drouin for that 4th spot. And I feel with the way Ross Colton's been playing, we're at 6 points in his last 5 games, including 4 of those points being power play goals. Seems like that would be a strange player to bump for Jonathan Drouin, who's been like whatever. So I think, I don't know. I'm worried about Jonathan Drouin, I guess, at the end of the day when he comes back. And I think Ross Colton, I think people might be nervous that he loses the top power play. I don't know if he does. But yeah, I just wanted to report on all that and also to give a shout out to how incredible Ross Colton has been with all those power play goals.
He's been so good. And I mean, we already shared a lot of praise on Ross Colton last episode, saying like, hey, this is a new opportunity for Colton. He's making the most of it. We don't know if he'll keep getting this deployment, but as long as he is, we're interested. Drouin is day to day, according to the latest update from Coach Bednar. So we'll find out soon enough whether or not Ross Colton is going to stick on the top power play. In the meantime, I'm not letting go of Ross Colton. Like I'm going to hold on. I'm going to hope he keeps his spot. I don't know, Elon. Like I really can't predict. I was actually going to say maybe it's Lehkonen who loses his spot on the top power play. I don't know if you remember, but towards the end of the last season, Lehkonen was off the top unit. And so right. I wonder if he's...
Nichushkin was there, though. But yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. Like, and of course, it depends on what everyone's role is and whether they can change or adapt. But, like, Lehkonen last season was on the top power play for a bunch, got injured, came back, and didn't see the top power play again.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Maybe, don't be like feeling like you have found gold here with Lehkonen when he comes back. But also, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about Ross Colton. Just the regular amount of worried from a guy who's never done it and now is doing well. Like it's a hot streak, but definitely hold and see how long he can last for you. Brian, by the way, a lot of updates in these games since we talked about these teams. New Jersey's up 4-1 now. Unfortunately for you, I'm not seeing much Heeshear. I'm seeing no Heeshear. So I feel bad about that. Dougie Hamilton, though, picked up another point, so good for him. And I'm very happy to report that Paul Cotter scored a goal just so that my recommendation to grab him in Matchup Maximizer last week wasn't a total flame out. Even though he didn't hold top line, he had an assist in the last game, a goal today. I think that's enough to be a successful stream, Trev, okay? So I want you to give me a good old check mark over there on the Discord and your accountability. But okay, let's move on. Oh, no, wait, we got to stay in Colorado. Talk about a Noonan. Okay, and I feel like we've talked about him so much already, and I just knocked my water bottle. I don't know if that came through on the podcast, but I'm very excited because this is a guy who, on short shifts with Jeremy and Shams did a great job on Thursday, but I will say they were very much like, who knows with Colorado, maybe this is a team where you don't want any goal. Like, to me, I'm like, I want a Noonan right now. Like, there's no guarantees, but like, the Georgiev started the season and he was terrible. Then Eustace Noonan was like doing poorly in terms of like when he was being brought in mid-game when Georgiev had a bad start to the game. Yeah, Noonan had bad games then, but to be fair, those were like Like he wasn't prepared to start. Now he's started. Finally, they decided to go and start giving him starts. 3 starts in a row, 3 wins, 1 goals against in 2 of them. The other one was 2 goals against. Like 3 gems for Ann Noonan. So I feel, and I know there's the concern like Kokkinen's there. Maybe he gets a start, sure, but or like I feel like there's a chance, and this is goalies. It's hard to predict, but Noonan's also like not some nobody, right? He's like a decently high pedigree goalie prospect. Like maybe he's just gonna, turn out to be the starter for the team. Like they're gonna give Georgiev another game or two. If Georgiev flames out, who knows? Or maybe Georgiev will be fine in the next game, and then it'll just kind of go back to how things were gonna be, or maybe it'll be 50-50. But all that to say, if he's still out there in free agency, like why not? Like it's hard to get a starting goalie on a really good team that's doing well. Like I feel like this is a shot we're taking. I took him on Tuesday right before, once he got announced to start the game. I was like, oh, and I actually dropped Aiden Hill, who we'll talk about, but I was getting frustrated that Aiden Hill was not even getting a second game in a row, or like Samsonov got a second game in a row. I was like, what is this? I didn't sign up for a tandem here. And I was like, forget this guy. I'm too impatient. I jumped on Anunin, and I'm hoping he'll be a long-term hold for me. I guess I'll have to wait and see. But it's a fun situation over in Colorado with Georgiev only on the last year of his contract. Colorado obviously going for it. They're going to go with the goalie that they think is best.
Yeah, and there's also Capo Kakkonen lurking in the mix too, right? Like I don't know that we expect to see a whole lot more from Kakkonen than we have from him in any of his other stops. But it was the only strange thing about this is how long it's taken a Noonan to get like a little more of a push from coach. So here it is, right? And yes, he was snapped up in basically all my leagues before I had a chance to realize this was happening. But if you got him, that's great. I'd hang on for a couple games. The only thing I'll say is, well, actually, you know what? Noonan has had really good protection this year. I was gonna say, like, I just don't know. We think of Colorado based on how they performed in the last like several years, right? And we've already remarked this year on how they look kind of thin on paper, but they do have. I'm just counting here, the 6th best expected goals differential at 5-on-5 in the league. So that's good news for their goalie. They're still a very good team. They're making it work. So yeah, if a Union can get the net and hold it, you just found yourself a top end starter.
Yeah. So obviously we'll wait and see. We'll find out soon. Oh, right. I have one more thing, and then I'll throw to ad break. One last guy I'll mention quickly on Colorado. Brian, not that we need to do a deep dive here, but kudos to Joel Kiviranta. 4 goals in his last 3 games. I still remember him from being an overtime hero. What was it, for Dallas?
Dallas. He had a hat trick.
Years ago.
Didn't he have, was it consecutive hat tricks? He's like every time he scored, he got a hat trick.
Well, and here he goes again on another run. Can't imagine it'll last. I'm sure most people didn't even realize Kiviranta was on Colorado, but maybe they realize now because he keeps scoring goals. I assume we're not going to be recommending for people to jump on Kiviranta in free agency, hoping for this to continue.
No, we're not. Kiviranta, for what it's worth, things that are going well for him. He saw season high 17 minutes on Thursday night at Utah. And the game before that, he saw what had to that point been a season high 15 minutes in Seattle. Before that, Kiviranta was playing just 9 to 11 minutes a night. He's got 4 goals on his last 6 shots. Don't expect this to continue, but we'll see what his ice time is against Ottawa tonight. And if he can keep getting games where he's playing 15 minutes or more a night, then he at least enters like, oh, maybe I should stream him territory versus I'm not going to just hope lightning strikes again.
Okay, I'm doing an ad break now. I'm not even going to call for it. I'm just going to use my cool sound effect to go. Now it's going to come back. Okay. I don't know why I keep hitting my like neurotic, like I'm pressing add points or no, or whatever, edit points. Okay. So, Brian, on the topic of outjuries, we're still in that section. We were talking about a Union just recently. Another goalie that is someone to start considering again is, of course, oh man, sorry. I forgot Kemper's first name. I think my brain has disappeared. Darcy. That's a fun name. I didn't really reflect on the fact that his name is Darcy.
Do you know any Darcys?
Again. Dominic Darcy.
That's where I was going to. I know, and I worked with a Darcy.
Okay.
I think Kemper's the only other Darcy in my life.
All right, I'll come back now.
Dominic Darcy.
All right, so continuing with the outjuries. Oh, I hate how I start with all right. Okay. Continuing with outjuries, Brian, let's go to LA where Darcy Kemper is back in the net. He's played a single game so far since missing, like a couple weeks of time. Got the win against Utah, only 2 goals against on 25 shots, so not too shabby, 920 save percentage. In the meantime, while Kemper was out, David Riddick actually was like not as bad. I know you said like going into the season that you thought David Riddick is maybe not as bad as we remembered. He actually had a decent run last year. And yeah, I got to give him some kudos. He had one really bad game against Vegas where Riddick let in 6 goals on 30 shots. But aside from that, he had like 3 of his last 4 games were like 2 goals against, 1 goal against, and 1 goal against. Like 3 really good wins for the Kings. So I do have to wonder. And again, this is like, how are we supposed to know? This is more just like reporting. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Kings are going to be like, okay, if Riddick is fine, Darcy Kemper obviously is like not a guy who's shown that he could be a high volume starter without either getting injured or struggling. Maybe they get close to 50-50. I actually wonder, Brian, if you wanted to compare, like, which situation are you more confident in being able to predict between what's going on in LA with the goalies and in Toronto? Do you have like one that you feel more able to put your stamp on? Like, I'm pretty sure this is how it's going to shape out.
I feel like LA is going to be more chaotic. Like, that's my take on it. I think Toronto, my guess with the Leafs is that they want a clear number 1, but they also want both goalies to be good and like have confidence and be able to trade off as needed, especially given Wall's injury history. In LA, I feel like they're just looking for someone who can stop the puck. And so far, Darcy Kemper is winning the goaltending battle. At 5-on-5, he's got pretty respectable numbers, and beyond respectable, he's playing 11 points above his expected Fenwick save percentage. That's very good. David Riddick has not been very good. He's just got an 882 save percentage at 5-on-5, and he's playing 12 points below his expected Fenwick save percentage. So but the reason I called the Kings crease chaotic is because I think both of these guys could have high highs and low lows. And I get the sense that LA, again, just wants somebody who can play well enough to help them win a game. And that might change. Which goalie that is might change on a regular basis. I don't know that it's going to be so different. Like, I remember when Kemper's last stop in Washington, Kemper and sharing the net with Lindgren, that seemed like a very difficult and hard to predict situation. This one so far, Elon, my take that Riddick might take the net isn't playing out so far. I think Kemper is proving that he's the better option. My guess is LA knows that and wants him to do well. He just has to follow through and do well enough.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. And obviously, like, it's really crazy to look at the stats from the season, especially from someone like Kemper who's played 4 games, 3 really good ones, and then one where he let in 8 goals against the Sens in that crazy game. So it's like, obviously, his like save percentage on the season is 895. So you would look at that and be like, oh, he's having a terrible season. When actually, if you look at like quality starts, it's like 75%, which is really good. That's what happens with small sample sizes, of course. While we're on the Kings, we were like so high on Alex Laferriere. I feel like we gave some people some really good advice to pause the pod and jump on the guy while he was on the top line and top power play. And even when Laferriere was bumped from the top line, he's been like on the 3rd line now with Fogle and Turcotte, and it's like gone like still pretty well. He, scored a couple goals in a row, like, 2 games in a row with goals. He had 2 assists a couple games ago against San Jose. Yesterday against Utah, though, it did annoy me when I had a full roster. I had to make some sit-start decisions, and I put Laferriere in my lineup over Evgeny Malkin, who, had gone pointless for a couple games himself. That turned out to be a big mistake because Malkin had a big game. Laferriere had himself 0 shots, no points. I actually got so annoyed with Laferriere from that one bad game, and maybe this makes me a bad manager or a genius manager. You tell me, Brian, but I traded him. I was too mad. I was like, get off my team.
It's like Mike Keenan moves right here.
I had an offer actually sitting that I had gotten the day before, offering Sam Montembeault for Laferriere. This was after Montembeault had a really bad blow-up game. And I was like, I don't know, I'm going to think about it. And Laferriere did so badly against Utah that I was like, get out of here. I'm taking Montembeault. And we'll see how that shakes out for me. Montembeault had a good game yesterday for what it's worth for the Habs. Caden Primo having a good game himself today, which I don't like to see. I'd rather Caden Primo just got blown up by Philadelphia. But obviously Philly has their own issues, which we'll get to in a little bit. But anyways, it's not about me. It's about Alex Laferriere. One bad game doesn't really mean much, but I do definitely like him less being on the 3rd line, even if that 3rd line was doing really well for the Kings. So I'm curious, what is our excitement level? I'm assuming we're no longer going to be calling him the Paterka West at this point. He's more like fringe guy that you maybe hold, but don't expect too much.
Yeah, I think it's time. Well, okay, it's we just need to acknowledge like Laferriere was fantastic, but now that he's on the third line and top power play, although I see Andrea in the chat is mentioning that Laferriere spent some time on a line with Fiala for part of yesterday.
I think that game got a little weird. I was seeing some tweets about how like I think it was Fiala though who like was getting benched for a lot
Yeah,
because he like took a bad penalty. So I think they were like going into
coach hates
blender mode a
Fiala
little bit. So
right now.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but yeah, it
so
does seem like Byfield is like going to be on the top line at least for now. They could change any second, of course.
yeah, it could and it might because I'm pretty sure the big picture play in LA this year was to give Byfield his own line, right? To set him up to run a line. And so that's why Laferriere was on the top line, but now he's in, the old classic third line top power play unit setup. The funny part about this is that Laferriere has 7 points in 9 games, but no power play points despite being on the top unit every game. He's shooting 27% at 5-on-5. It seems, Elon, like I think you did the right thing. Seems like a really good time to sell Laferriere. I like for the moment, I'm shelving the dream of Alex Laferriere being a top line, top power play guy consistently through the season. I think he still is going to have stretches where he's there and rosterable, but at the moment, and also I don't know when LA changes up their power play. Laferriere has been on the ice for 4 power play goals, which is decent, but in 9 games, I don't know. I think they would like to convert a little more often, and Laferriere, of course, as I mentioned, has no points on those 4 power play goals.
Sorry.
Are you good?
Yeah. I just
am I throwing well? It seems
yeah,
like
no, that was good.
Okay.
Sorry,
okay.
it's good. No, I don't have anything to throw. I'm just gonna go to the next guy now. Yeah. And I guess, yeah, Laferriere may end up not being worth holding. We'll see. But one guy, Brian, I have to give you kudos for like you said, you don't think he'll be worth holding, and I kind of pushed back. But in my cupful division, Tier 3 Ljungby, I saw Trevor Moore get dropped, fall to free agency, and I am not planning on making a bid, which is obviously I really thought that. I don't know. I don't know why I thought it. Who even cares about Trevor Moore? But yeah, he stinks.
That's
only
so
2
rude.
points.
After what?
Only 2 points in 9 games.
Yeah.
I feel like he was dropped for a reason. He's like not shooting too much lately. Oh well.
Yeah.
Another cold streak though that I'll mention. I'll just throw 2 to you so that we can be efficient with our time here. But what's up with also Quinton Byfield, by the way, who's back on the top line? You think, okay, top line, top power play, let's go, Quinton Byfield. Oh wait, he's not top power play. Laferriere is still there. Maybe that's the problem. Byfield finally did get an assist yesterday against Utah, but that's only his first point in the previous 4 games. Byfield started the season pretty well, 2 points in the first 2 games, but since then, now we're looking at only 2 points in his next 7. Yeah, it's not taking off the way we thought it would for Byfield so far. So yeah, curious to get your take on Moore and Byfield, and if you think either of them are going to turn it around. I assume you're not going to say that you think Moore is going to turn it around.
Yeah, I'm not going to predict like an imminent Moore breakout, but I do think Quinton Byfield has more to give. He's still, remember last year, and apologies for those of you who've heard this several times, but Byfield last year when he stepped up, it was the notable part was the shots on goal. That's what we liked last year at 5-on-5 and made us believers that he's turning a corner. He's stepping it up a notch, and he's still doing that. His shot rates are still excellent. Byfield's time on ice has gone down a little bit, and I think that's just a function of him not being on Kopitar's line for the time being. He's also seeing some really bad variance, though. He's got he hasn't scored on a 5-on-5 shot, and he's only getting involved in about maybe half as many of the goals scored while he's on the ice as we might have expected. Even off the top power play, I think I'd still take Byfield definitely ahead of Moore. And I think I'd still take Byfield over Laferriere. I'm not going to get too down on Byfield. He might be a tough hold just because he hasn't arrived yet, and we don't know when he will, and when that top power play opportunity will come for Byfield. But I would be pretty surprised if 20, 30 games from now he's a free agent in most leagues.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would definitely take Byfield at this point. Feel like maybe you don't have to make a trade offer for him. Maybe you could just wait and hope he gets dropped, and then that could be a good opportunity to grab a guy and then have him go off. Like, hey, I grabbed Jake Neighbors after he was pointless for 4 games and got dropped in Cupful, and now he's like a roster mainstay for me. I've been really happy to have him. So maybe that kind of thing could happen. Maybe like I said, like a Kuzmenko or a Huberdeau in Calgary. Like, sometimes these like higher end guys are getting dropped, and it's a good opportunity to give them a try. I think Byfield's definitely someone I wouldn't give up on just yet, just like you're saying, especially while he's on the top line. Next, Outjury Linus Ullmark came back for the Sens and hasn't been that good. Like, I mean, it was only one game so far, so again, it's hard to read in too much. These things kind of like Joseph Woll, but yeah, not a great game for Ullmark, letting in 5 goals on 27 shots in the 6-4 loss to Vegas a couple of days ago. I'm seeing that today Anton Forsberg is getting back in the net for this game against Colorado, which is obviously going to be a very tough test for Forsberg, and maybe by the time you listen to this podcast, it'll be very obvious that Forsberg is not going to be getting the following starts after a bad game against Colorado. But to give Forsberg his due, he shut out Utah, right, in his last game, which was very impressive, stopping 31 shots. I assume it's still like Ullmark, like volume starter for sure, but just wanted to throw it out there that a bit of a surprising turn of events of Forsberg getting the start today against Colorado.
My guess what that's about is that like Ullmark, I think it's a health thing. That's my hunch. I don't know for sure that that's
it's
the case.
It's good for your health to not play against Colorado.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. But I keep seeing bits and pieces, and maybe I'm misordering them in my mind that like Ullmark has tweaked this, or he's not quite 100%, or he's feeling a touch uncomfortable. And I think, given that the Sens have committed long-term to Ullmark, that they're going to want to protect that investment and not make some short-term mistake that will cost them for a while, which they have a history of doing with other players. So this is my thought and feeling that maybe Ullmark needs some time to get a little healthier, or maybe just to watch, because he's been bad this year. I was saying bad things about Riddick with his 882 5-on-5 save percentage. Ullmark's at 5-on-5 is 873. Yikes. And he's playing almost 30 save points below
Brian,
his expected.
It's ridiculous. He's played 3 games.
Yeah.
Like, it just takes one bad game to have these numbers.
Exactly. So. It's a small sample, and maybe we should be dropping that caveat a little more frequently, like as we tend to do.
Or just not mentioning his like super advanced numbers.
It's just not a great. Well, no, this is not a super advanced stat. 5-on-5 save percentage. It's just like, but referencing his anything save percentage after 3
appearances, like it would have been
enough. Is not necessarily helpful, and he's only played. So. I'm just saying it hasn't been like a super smooth start for Ullmark, and I'm not this Forsberg start. I guess your positioning with the question is, should we be worried about Ullmark being the volume starter in Ottawa? My answer is unlikely for 2 reasons. The first is that Ullmark, I think, is too good and paid too well to sit on the bench. And second reason is Anton Forsberg has proven time and time again that he cannot handle even a 1A workload. So Ullmark will be called upon for one reason or another before long.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just wanted to throw it out there. Also, I'll mention Shane Pinto is week to week. So, bummer for him. He wasn't making too much of an impact. It seems like I think he has upside at some point, but he wasn't getting the deployment anyway to do so well. And while we're on Ottawa, I'll mention quickly that Claude Giroux was dropped in my Cupful division a couple weeks back. I put in a bid, but it wasn't high enough. Man, I wish I went higher. I feel like I was planning to go higher, and then I just cheaped out right at the end. He put like 28 and he went for 30. I missed by a couple dollars. 7 points in 5 games for Giroux since he was dropped. So I guess I feel bad, but probably the person who dropped him is feeling worse. So sorry. That's what happens when you drop a guy you picked super high. But I do it all the time, right? So I dropped Jack Quinn after a couple bad games, and I haven't looked back, so that's worked out well for me so far. He's still in free agency, but Claude Giroux might end up being the type of guy who you end up regretting letting go of. He's Claude freaking Giroux. He's almost 37 years old, but still doing really well. Up to 7 points in 7 games now. Yeah,
I felt the full impact of that. He's on MJ's lineup in our Cupful matchup this year, and has been this week, and has been a difference maker. 4 power play points for Giroux has been fantastic. Those 4 power play points have come in his last 5 games. He's also scored 3 times on his last 8 shots over 5 games, which is 1, like some lucky shooting, 2, not a whole lot of shots. Claude Giroux, he took over 2 shots per game last year. Right now has 9 shots in 7 games. So I'd like to see more shooting from him. But hey, like you said, he turns 37 in January, and that he's great. Claude Giroux is still good, still rosterable. There might be these moments though where he seems droppable, and I don't blame anyone who did let him go. And I feel for you if you did.
Yeah, it's wild that he has now 4 power play points, and he's been like a power play 2 guy all season. So I guess it just goes to show that Ottawa's got 2 pretty strong units there. Next outry. We're still not done the outries, Brian. William Karlsson is back for Vegas. Had a really nice first game of the year, a goal and an assist in the 7-3 win over San Jose. I guess worth a while to take a look at what the Vegas lines have looked like now with William Karlsson back in the picture. Karlsson, like third line center, right? Which you would think isn't that great, like centering Tanner Pearson and Alex Holtz. So they kept Barbashev with Stone and Eichel, and then Tomas Hertl has been centering Howden and Pavel Dorofeyev. Also, if you look at the top power play, Karlsson wasn't there. It was Stone, Hertl, Eichel, Dorofeyev, and Shea Theodore on that top unit. But hey, a goal and assist isn't that bad, though I think it's not like too, like, I don't think I'm going too out on a limb here to say that probably a guy in the bottom 6, like not top power play, is like not going to like have that big of an impact. So unless like something changes, I feel like things definitely could change. So Vegas is doing really well now. So why would they make any imminent changes? I feel like William Karlsson may be a little bit of a mirage after this good game against the Sharks where Vegas scored 7 times.
When has William Karlsson not been a mirage? I feel like of all of the guys who get brought up consistently, I think he's someone who I've rarely even been open to the possibility that it's sustainable.
But Brian, like last season, he ended up ending really strong. Like he got hot and he kept it up. He ended last season, by the way. William Karlsson had 60 points in 70 games. Like he had a really good 70-point pace.
Yeah, so I'm no. Well, that takes the wind out of my sails.
Sorry.
I mean, he was shooting 17% last season on the whole, which he hadn't been really near since his 43 goal campaign at the start of in Vegas's inaugural season. So Karlsson had 30 goals in 70 games. That was super helpful. But without with power play 1B time at best. So yeah, I don't know. So maybe Elon, of all the times that we've talked about William Karlsson, I've been like, forget it. Maybe the lesson here is I need to warm up to Karlsson rather than we need to stop expecting that he can sustain this. But I'm still sticking with the latter lesson for now. But check in with me in a few weeks.
Okay, I will. I'll make a note. I mean, like Jeremy and Lewis, Jeremy and Shams were talking on Thursday about Karlsson's return and talking about how like it might be hard for him to get on the top power play just because they already have 2 centers, so they maybe want to center for the second power play, like since they already have Hertl and Eichel on PP1. So that, but you would think if you're just putting like the best players on the power play, maybe Pavel Dorofeyev could get bumped, and that would obviously help William Karlsson's value. Though, to be fair to Dorofeyev, like he's looking really good. Like he's playing on the second line, like I said, with Hertl and playing on the top power play. He had a goal and 2 assists versus San Jose. There was also a multi-point game a couple games back against LA where Dorofeyev had a goal and an assist. I should mention also he took 9 shots in this game against the Sharks. So like, I don't know if it's like, I feel like we've talked about him enough so I don't have to be like, who is Pavel Dorofeyev? But he's definitely someone that I feel like isn't too well known. And I feel like he's someone that I'd be very interested to roster while he's on that top power play that's doing pretty well for Vegas. And I'll mention another guy who's doing really well for Vegas. It's probably not available to you, but it's just wild to see. Alex Pietrangelo has 8 assists in his last 3 games. So kudos to anyone who, because you got him probably pretty late in drafts. Like I feel like he's like less interesting now that it doesn't seem like he's battling for the top power play. Like in drafts, people thought it was going to be Hanifin. Now it looks like it's going to be Shea Theodore, who, by the way, Shea Theodore just signed a big contract, which I think makes him like, I feel like that really like cements him as like sticking on that top power play. When before, when it was like Hanifin has the big contract and Theodore is going to be a free agent, maybe they need to like start moving on to the next guy. But anyway, I digress. Dorofeyev's been good. Pietrangelo's been insane. I assume the more interesting question is how for real is this Pavel Dorofeyev?
Yeah, well, I think I'm actually going to zoom out and be like, how for real are the Vegas Golden Knights, who are averaging 4 goals per 60 minutes? I mean, yeah, they just beat up on the Sharks. But their expected goals rate is almost, well, it's not quite half of their actual goals rate in Vegas. But you have to scroll all the way down to like the bottom 7 or 8 teams to find the Vegas Golden Knights expected goals rates at 5-on-5. But they are crushing it in shooting percentage. That's the big difference. They are shooting 14.5% at 5-on-5 to lead the league, just ahead of the Columbus Blue Jackets. So this heater for the whole team won't continue, which means that whoever is benefiting from it might also slow down. But for Pavel Dorofeyev, who, by the way, 3rd-round pick, 79th overall in 2019, he spent a little time in the minors, like close to 100 games. Didn't score or shoot the lights out or whatever. He had like 80 points or 70 points over his last 100 games in the minors, roughly. I love the 9 shots against San Jose. That's fantastic. I love that Dorofeyev's on the top power play. And look, I think Dorofeyev could be a 60-point player if he stays on the top power play. So this is not, it probably sounded like I was cruising towards saying, whatever, he's just another flash in the pan. But I'm not sure about that. I think if he does hold on the top power play, then Dorofeyev could be somebody worth holding on to.
All right. And next, okay. All right. And yeah, on the cold side, I should say for Vegas, somehow, even with all of these goals that you're talking about, Noah Hanifin has been like super disappointing, especially for people who are expecting to get a top power play defenseman. Hanifin, only 3 points in 9 games overall on the season. Nothing in this slaughter of the Sharks. So he's a bit of a disappointment. He was just dropped to like a couple division. I don't know. He still gets some blocks. So I might consider not to give away my spot, but I guess I have to. That's the job. I need a defenseman. Maybe I'll take a look at Noah Hanifin, but obviously a lot less exciting. And then also I did mention before I dropped Adin Hill because, like I said, I'm not interested in a tandem guy. And it's like Adin Hill hasn't even been that good. Like it would be one thing if he was like losing starts, but when he played, he was really good. But he gave me a couple negatives. Hill's let in 3 or 4 goals in every single game he's played this season so far. Most of them 4. There's 4 goal against games and 1 3 goals against game. So, I thought Adin Hill would be like a really savvy draft pick as like at the time, like one of the last guys I expected to be a starter that was available, but I don't think he is. And so, maybe he will turn out to be at some point. But at this point, like Samsonov, by the way, has been doing really well. So it's kind of like, it's not a situation where with some of these goals we were talking about before, where like with Stolarz, I'm like, oh yeah, like we'll see, maybe worth holding on just to kind of see how the whole situation shakes out. I was willing to move on. Curious to know if you would have done the same, Brian.
I'm pretty close to moving on Adin Hill. Like, I'm not sure. You know what? Watching Samsonov succeed is definitely a reason to think that Adin Hill, depends on your format, right? Like in the Cupful, kkupfl.com, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, volume matters, and having a goalie in a timeshare isn't generally worth the investment. And I think, Elon, seeing that in the Cupful, I don't think you were wrong to say goodbye to Adin Hill, who has been terrible. Like he's been, and again, small sample, all right, but his quality start percentage this season, Adin Hill, 0%. 0 out of 5 Adin Hill starts have been quality, and 2 have been really bad. That's a very bad picture on the whole. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but the more advanced quote unquote numbers also show that Hill is struggling, while they show Ilya Samsonov has been excellent. So to me, I think this sort of depends on what Vegas wants to do here. Do they want to be like Toronto, where they want, or what I assume Toronto to want, which is like, hey, let's have both our goalies succeeding. Let's have them both going. Even if someone's struggling, we're not looking to award a number 1 job. We'd like to have basically 2 guys who can take the reins if we call on them. I see a clear goalie between Hill and Samsonov that I'd want to net each night, but my hunch is that Vegas would rather see them both succeed. And with all the goals Vegas is scoring, at least in the meantime, while the team is on this shooting percentage heater, maybe they can afford to keep trying to give Adin Hill chances. I know I have Samsonov on my Cupful roster, and I'm not necessarily in a hurry to drop him until I see who starts the next game.
Yeah, like definitely. Don't get me wrong. I agree with you that Hill probably is like not the backup now. Like he hasn't lost his job. I just feel like he's not the volume starter. Maybe they're looking at the tandem now until Hill like really establishes himself, which seems like he's far away from right now. You've got Samsonov. I see that Vegas plays Monday and Wednesday next week against Calgary and then LA. So I'd imagine you'd at least get a start on one of those days, which is pretty nice to get an early start from a goalie, and then you can move on after that. So yeah, I think I would hold on to him as well. One last outjury, then we'll get to all the other stuff. That's a lot to get to. Jeez. Nick Bjugstad is back for Utah. Not super fantasy relevant. He had 4 hits in his return, for what it's worth. But obviously, I'm not here to talk about Nick Bjugstad. I want to talk about how the team just can't score goals anymore, which has led to most of their guys being cold, like even the big guns. But, we won't get into Keller, who's at least he scored a goal in the last game, so that's nice. But, Dylan Gunther's cold. Barrett Hayton's cold. Schmaltz is cold. I think I could ask you a question about each one of these 3 guys where I feel like people are wondering, depending on how deep your league is, how long you're holding on. Dylan Gunther was someone who everyone was like losing their mind over to start the year. He had such a great start, then all of a sudden everything went away. Same kind of with Barrett Hayton. I have Hayton, so obviously I'm interested to get your take on him, and I believe you have him too in Cupful. Are you nervous about these guys? Or is it the kind of thing where just like last year, you have to tell me that I know Hayden's not doing anything, but he's the top line, he's the top power play playing with Caden Keller, so you can't get rid of him. You just have to get nothing from him all the time and hopefully at least bench him on busy days.
That's what I said last year, and I was wrong about Barrett Hayton. He looked really good, and then he got injured, so he never really got to snap out of it. But I was looking at Barrett Hayton, and I was considering dropping Barrett Hayton or seeing what value he held on the trade market, if any. And sometimes there's some leagues that are really competitive, and it's what have you done for me lately? And it's hard to hold someone who's cold. But I looked at Hayton's numbers, and they're still looking good, even though the production has disappeared. I think he legit looks to me like a top line center and a top power play producer. And I think he's earned that role. I don't think anyone on the team is challenging him for the first line center role with Clayton Keller. So that's why I'm holding on to Barrett Hayton for the moment. The other reason I'm holding on to Barrett Hayton is because it's not just him who's doing nothing in Utah. As you mentioned, it's the whole team. Over the last 4 games, Utah has just 5 goals on 114 shots. So you do the quick math, they're shooting about 4.5% or not even that. So let's see what happens when Utah does start getting goals and they like the goals that they should be converting on. If Hayton's still getting left out of the production at that point, I'll worry more. But for now, I'm gonna keep the faith in Barrett Hayton.
And I guess same goes for Dylan Gunther, who had 5 goals in the first 3 games, now has gone cold, still on the top power play, did have an assist in that last game, the 3-2 loss to LA. I feel like if it was me, I'd be more interested in holding Gunther than Hayton. But I could see that going either way. But
I think the upside for Gunther is probably higher than it is for Hayton.
Right.
We see him as like a shooter who's just ready to go off for 30 or 40 goals at some point. Maybe not this year, but in the near, probably not too far from now either. So I'm with you, Elon. If I had them both, I would drop Hayton and hold Gunther.
All right, let's do edit break here, or ad break, I should say. We're going to move on to the injuries now. Let me just bring up the pages for these guys. Yeah, Brian, the reason I've been slow is because if you notice on my sheet, I didn't put stats on my sheet, so I've been having to kind of bring up a lot of people as I go. So that's why sometimes I feel like that piece.
I wonder if that piece can be automated or helped.
Maybe someone's got to do it. Okay, so we are done now with the outjuries section of the podcast. Brian, let's go to the other half, the injuries. There's a few, it's not too bad this week. Definitely was more of a happy week than a sad week in terms of lots of players coming back to our rosters versus leaving. I don't think we dug too deep into Vince Dunn getting hurt. He's out. He's on the IR right now for Seattle, so it's going to be a little while. Clearly, this is good news, you would think, for Brandon Montour. And yeah, Montour definitely earning that salary. He's playing bigger minutes with Vince Dunn out, and I'm seeing that Montour is now up to 5 points in 9 games. You know what? He actually isn't getting too many points recently. I'm seeing 3 points in his last 5. Not terrible, but yeah, he's playing big minutes, getting hits, getting blocks, taking a few shots. So I like Brandon Montour. Obviously, I think he's someone that's probably rostered by everyone. Someone who's maybe not rostered, but you want to take a look at is Riker Evans, who is a guy who played 36 games last year, didn't do too much, but now this year, obviously a big difference is he's getting a bit more ice time. In his last 3 games, he's been over 20 minutes. Riker Evans, obviously this coincides with Dunn being out of the lineup. And Evans, yeah, scored a goal against Colorado, pointless in his last couple of games, but he had 4 hits in each of them, 3 blocks. I don't know, like he's getting secondary power play time. It looks like Seattle is kind of giving more to the unit with Montour and McCann and those guys. So maybe this is the kind of situation where since Dunn is gone, they're going to lean more on the other power play unit. But I did want to throw out the name Riker Evans as someone who was looking like really good like a couple days ago. Now he's gone 2 pointless games in a row, which makes him less exciting. Though, like I said, he is at least giving you hits when he's not giving you points. Want to give a quick heat check on Riker Evans and how interested you'd be in him while Dunn is out?
Like that's how,
Okay.
like he's getting power play time, but I don't know how into Riker Evans I am. And part of the reason is actually linked to Brandon Montour and kind of all of Seattle. The power play is not doing much, and it seems like those units are split, and I'm not sure anyone's gonna have significant power play production. So like, you know what, I shouldn't have been so like on Riker Evans because it's rare to find a defenseman in free agency in a lot of leagues where they're playing any kind of significant power play time and in a position to get points. So if you're looking for that, if you're someone who was like Oliver Ekman Larson, then maybe Riker Evans is somebody that you want to at least consider adding to your lineup. But yeah, the Seattle power play hasn't been that great. And I'm actually going to flip over to Brandon Montour. And like you're like, oh yeah, he's doing okay. I'm not sure if he's someone that I want to buy in on now or if just be like glad he's not on my roster. He's shooting more than ever at 5-on-5, which is great. His line mates, like his line is on ice numbers, so like those of his teammates aren't awesome, but Montour is producing at a similar 5-on-5 rate as he'd established in Florida, even pre-breakout. But with Montour, it's the power play that really set him apart a couple years back. But this year on the power play, he's playing less than 3 minutes a night, down from the 4 or more minutes a night that he'd been seeing in Florida since breaking out. And I'm not sure if anyone's noticed that Brandon Montour has yet to register a power play point as a member of the Seattle Kraken. He's attempting a similar number of shots since his breakout, but fewer of them are getting to the net and more of them are getting blocked for Brandon Montour. So like I'm not sure. He's shooting more, like just to put that in like an easier way. Montour is trying to shoot more, but with less success in actually making those shots dangerous. And the Seattle power play as a whole is not offering really anywhere near the offense that Florida's did. So I think Brandon Montour can still have a decent season, but I want the whole power play in Seattle to look better before thinking Montour is anywhere near that 75-point breakout plateau that he hit a couple years ago. And I think for Montour, I was really optimistic about him coming into the season. I kept getting sniped on him in drafts. And I'm like, yeah, maybe he can get 55 points with a lot of shots based on how things are going right now. And if I was going to over under that 55, I'd over it. But still, like I'm downgrading my hope that Brandon Montour can be like a 65-plus point defenseman with the Kraken.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Maybe I stand corrected a bit. I was a little bit being like, oh yeah, Montour's doing pretty well. I guess you're right. He's doing like fine. Nothing too special. But yeah, maybe those power play points will start to come at some point. Though obviously more ice time on the power play would be nice. Nice to see Matty Beniers break out of his funk. He's had a couple good games in a row. I mentioned on Matchup Maximizer, maybe a good guy to take a shot on now while Seattle has a good schedule next week, playing 4 games. So we'll wait and see. I'm not going to be like for sure, but he is playing with the red hot Jared McCann, who has 10 points in his last 6 games. So obviously that's the kind of guy you want to be playing with if you want to break out of any funk that you're in. Another injury I'll bring up here, Juraj Slavkovsky is out, going to be reevaluated in a week, I see, but that was like October 22nd, so maybe he'll be back soon. I will just mention that for however long Slavkovsky is out, Kirby Dach has been taking his spot on the top line, so that's playing with Caulfield and Suzuki, and Caulfield and Suzuki are like going off. They're incredible. Caulfield scoring basically every game. Suzuki multi-point games out the wazoo. I'm seeing so Montreal's winning against Philly right now, 4-1. Wouldn't be surprised to see all these guys. Okay, so Caulfield has a goal. Suzuki, goal and an assist. So that's what I said. Goal every game for Caulfield, multi-point game for Suzuki. And yeah, Kirby Dach, another point today. That brings Kirby Dach to 4 points in his last 3 games. He also had a goal and an assist against St. Louis. Goal and assist against St. Louis. So yeah, I think that Kirby Dach, for however long Slavkovsky is out, clearly this is just a primo spot to be playing with Caulfield and Suzuki at even strength and on the power play. So for next week, even if you're only getting 3 games, I think it's worth it to go and grab Kirby Doc and then, reevaluate once Slavkovsky is back in the picture.
I think that's totally fair. I don't have a whole lot more to add on that. Like Doc is someone who we've seen succeed when he's put in positions to succeed, which he hasn't consistently been. But now that he is, while Slavkovsky's out, makes a good stream, and I'm a little mad at Derek for taking him from me.
Oh, okay. Over in Pittsburgh, Brian Rust is hurt. And I don't think we have an update yet. I don't know if Shams here in the chat wants to give us I don't know, like the latest. I'm just saying he didn't return to the last game. So all I know is that Pittsburgh is such a mess. They apparently were changing the lines like crazy in the game yesterday against Vancouver. If Brian Rust misses time, it's like I guess someone, is going to jump up to the top line to play with Crosby, though again, like the lines were going insane. I'm seeing last game like Raquel and Drew O'Connor were there when Raquel had been with Malkin before. Rust was playing with Malkin. So, definitely you'll have to tune into short shifts on Tuesday where Brian, I don't even think I told you, Trev is going to be joining Lewis. Our accountability czar is going to be there to talk about the latest from the last couple of days. And I'm sure a Rust update will be part of that episode. And yeah, so we'll get some updated lines in Pittsburgh, though it might be the kind of thing where it doesn't matter what the lines are. Doesn't matter what the power plays are because they're going to change as Pittsburgh tries and struggles to figure out something that will work. I also saw a really sad tweet yesterday in the middle of the game. Some Pittsburgh beat writer was like saying how this is maybe the first time where it's pretty clear that Erik Karlsson is letting up more chances than he's generating.
That too. Oh.
And he's like, and I don't even think it's close. And it's like, oh, dagger. So yeah, not an amazing season for Pittsburgh, though it was nice to see Malkin break out of his little mini cold streak at the very least with a couple of points. But yeah, I don't really know what to say. Like maybe this will be good for Raquel. I'll throw it out there. Like someone's going to get on the top power play if Rust is hurt. And again, he might not even be. Tristan Jarry is now going to be in the minors for 2 weeks. He's on a conditioning stint. I didn't even know if you can do that without getting injured, but I guess you can. So they'll roll with Nedeljkovic and Blomqvist. Blomqvist apparently had a really good game when they got destroyed by, who was it, Edmonton? But he made like 40 plus saves. So I don't know. I'm not interested in any goalie on Pittsburgh right now. I'll tell you that. Like I've been less into streaming in goalies for a single game. Like I used to be, like, especially if I think I'm going to get 2 games from a goalie. Like even I know Shams is like the opposite. He like loves his goalies on bad teams, but I'm just like, I was happy to take Jonathan Quick yesterday. Like I know you said that like Jonathan Quick versus Anaheim is kind of like, man, maybe there won't even be many shots against it. I was like, I'll take the win, and a couple of win is worth 3 points. Chance of a shutout potentially just because of the difference in the quality of teams. So I want starts like that. I'm staying very far away from any Pittsburgh goalie, any Pittsburgh start. Too scary for me. Spooky scary.
Yeah, agree. And I made this case, I think it was last week on the show, right? That Tristan Jarry, as bad as he's been, has received 0 support. And from some sort of live tweeting or commenting that I've seen during some Pens games, I think he's occasionally been the reason that things haven't been even worse at times for the Penguins than they already have been. So I think it's kind of cool that Jarry's like took some time, took a little vacation, gonna go condition, build some confidence, and I can't wait to see what the rebuilt Tristan Jarry does when he gets back to the NHL, because I'm not sure Blomqvist or Nedeljkovic are going to be taking the job from him either.
Yeah, I think maybe Jarry's like partially like rebuilding himself, and maybe also, sometimes like I remember I used to have this fantasy when I was in university that if I was in a group project and it was like really hard, like I'm just gonna go to the bathroom and I hope like when I come back they'll have like solved this hard thing that I wasn't able to solve yet. So I wonder if Jarry's just kind of thinking like, hopefully Pittsburgh will kind of like figure their stuff out while I'm in the minors. By the time I come back, this will be a team with an actual system that can help their goalie somewhat. So we'll see how that works on all accounts. Let's go to cold streaks, Brian. Okay, like I said at the start, I got some guys who we're at a point now where we really gotta we can't just be like, oh, small sample size and shake it away, come back in a couple of weeks. We need to start really diving in and being like, maybe this guy just won't be as good as we hope. So I got some big names coming at you, Brian, okay? And I'm gonna start, I have to, Steven Stamkos. What the heck is going on with Steven Stamkos? Yesterday, Nashville played against Columbus, and they won 4-3. 4 goals for Nashville. You'd think a guy playing on the top power play and like getting big minutes. Stamkos played 17 minutes, almost 18. Nothing. Again, he is now like a goal in 8 games for Steven Stamkos. Like, it's just been a disaster for anyone who drafted him. He also only had 1 shot yesterday, 1 shot the game before, 2 shots the game before that. So it's like Stamkos what started the season taking some shots. That started to disappear. I would be nervous. Of course, this could be the kind of thing where he's getting used to it and he's about to go off any second, and it's really hard to predict. But like, what would you do? What do you do? I've seen people asking about sending like buy low trade offers, and it's like, yeah, it makes sense. He's Steven Stamkos. Last year, he had 81 points, 40 goals. But I mean, this is not going well at all.
No, it's not. And I have no great news for anyone who has Stamkos on their rosters who's done nothing. Well, basically anywhere. He has the 1 power play goal. But was it an empty netter? I'm trying to remember. I'm
not even sure.
I don't think it was, but for some reason, anyway, has done nothing else other than that. Stamkos hasn't done anything himself. The Preds haven't done anything with him on the ice. Like, there's nothing doing. I don't love to see that Stamkos is attempting fewer shots and recording fewer shots. His line is okay. And I'm going to go back to what I said about Markstrom, which is I'm going to chalk this up to an adjustment period, which we saw was going to be something that might be happening here. And that's, I mean, you can wait or you can sell. Like, those are your 2 options. If I had Stamkos, I mean, it depends on the offer. Like, I don't think I'd be actively trying to sell him for pennies on the dollar. I'm not sure anyone really would. I wouldn't be racing to get, like, quote unquote out from under him. But I'd be open to offers. I still, in my mind, I'm hopeful that Stamkos can find his way and Nashville can figure out what the heck they're doing with all their new pieces soon enough so that Stamkos can help your team if you've got him.
Yeah. By the way, the lines have been moving around a little bit. I'm seeing yesterday against Columbus, Stamkos was playing with Nyquist and Tommy Novak. Marchessault moved up to the top line to play with Ryan O'Reilly and Forsberg. So that makes things even worse for Stamkos, because before I liked that he was playing with Marchessault. So we'll see how things shake out. Obviously, he's not going to be this bad. Like, at some point, he's going to have a couple good games, but I wonder if we need to start reassessing if, maybe he's a 60-point guy and not a, 80-point guy. Like, I feel like that's definitely in the realm of possibility. He's not a young guy. At some point, everyone slows down and, so it's like on one hand, it's like a new team, but also it could be a lot of things, right? But it hasn't been good. And yeah, I would definitely be open. If I had him, me, Brian, I would be so nervous. I'd be like taking whatever offer I can get. Some guy on a hot streak, someone would offer me like Pavel Dorofeyev and I'd be considering it. But I think I would be strong enough to not take that deal, but I would be curious. Like, imagine if you had Stamkos. Oh, I think someone in the chat mentioned this, that they were like trying to trade Ross Colton for Steven Stamkos. So Ross Colton's insane right now. Would you have the guts if you had Ross Colton to move him for Stamkos?
I think I saw Ashley say that, but I'm pretty sure Ashley said it was part of a trade, like not like a straight up. But Ashley,
okay, so Brian, you have Ross Colton, right?
No, I wish I did.
Let's say you did, and someone offered you Stamkos. Would you be like slam accept?
I would, because like going back to what we were talking about earlier in the show, like we just don't know where Colton fits into the lineup. Like there's Nichushkin, there's Landeskog, in addition to Druin and Lehkonen, right? There's 4 guys out of the lineup right now who we expect to see at some point this season, and sure. I'm not sure where that leaves Colton. In the short term, it's going to hurt you. But I think the long-term gain for me would be tempting enough. What about you?
No, you're right. Like, it would be tough, and I'm glad I just don't have him, so I don't have to worry about it. I could imagine like what it's like for Stamkos managers, like Hyman managers. Did Hyman do something today, by the way? I see the Oilers won 3-2, and I really hope for those Hyman managers.
Bouchard was doing some stuff. He got on the board.
That's good. Okay, Hyman, nothing again. Yikes. Draisaitl, big game. 2 goals, 1 assist, 7 shots. Gonna miss you, Leon. But I'm waiting for Pasternak to come and give me those similar big games.
So Ashley in the chat is saying Colton and Lindgren for Stamkos. I mean, I don't know if this is like a goalies or gold kind of format, but like Lindgren I see as like a 50% start. That's great. If you got Stamkos for that and goalies like are not worth their weight in gold, then yeah, nicely done.
I mean, Yeah, you'd think nicely done. Like we hope. Like I'd say
We
70%
think.
chance nicely done.
Yes.
30% chance Stamkos isn't going to do that well. But I think
I'll
he'll be
say
fine. He's
like
still on the top power play.
75 to 80% chance nicely done.
Yeah. Good job, Ashley. I think. I hope. I'm pretty sure. By the way, I drafted Brady Shea, and then after he had been cold for the start of the season, I ended up dropping him because he had a bad schedule this week. But then I grabbed him back Friday. I actually did one of those 3 a.m. wake ups because I decided I'd get the Friday and Saturday games, and potentially he could be a hold moving forward. So I was like, okay, let me take back Brady Shea. I woke up at 3 a.m., made the ad, went back to sleep. Goal on Friday against Chicago, 2 assists yesterday against Columbus. Welcome back to the team, Brady Shea. I'm just going to pretend like I never dropped him. He's just like a smart draft pick that I made. I mean, obviously, it won't last. Like, he's a bit streaky, but I like the shots. I like the, points sometimes. So I'm happy to have him back. I would have felt bad if I dropped him and I needed defense and he was like doing well on someone else's team.
It's nice to see someone in Nashville finding their form.
Yeah. Okay. Cold streak, Brian. Next one, Matt Barzal. Okay. And this is another guy like Laferriere. I had, I had this offer sitting on me for a while of Draisaitl again. So I traded away Draisaitl and Barzal for Pasternak and Tomas Hertl. And, I had that offer. I was thinking about it. And like Barzal has been like really struggling on the Islanders. And Patrick Waugh has been changing up the lines, just being kind of ridiculous. Like they separated Barzal and Horvat on the power play. They were messing around even at even strength. There were a couple games in a row where Barzal started shooting after Duclair. Like Duclair got injured. Shams was saying how he's really worried about Barzal now because like that seemed like one good thing about like we were excited about what Duclair would do on that line. Now that Duclair's gone, it's going to be really bad. I was kind of thinking, what if Duclair was like someone who was like taking shots, and now like Barzal will finally go back to shooting like he did last year, and he had 2 games in a row of 4 shots, and then yesterday against Florida, no shots for Matt Barzal. What the heck? No points, no shots, just a total nothing game. So I was like, all right. Again, like just me being impulsive. Like, I think I'm going to take this deal. Like, how good is Matt Barzal? Anyway, so he's up to now only 4 points in 8 games on the season. And even more concerning for me, averaging only 2 shots per game. When last year, the whole reason I was into him was because he was shooting 3 shots per game. So again, small sample size, but it seems like the Islanders are a bit of a mess. And, even though Hertl was drafted like 10 rounds later or something, I feel like that's at least like a solid situation. Like I know he's not like going to be incredible, but I feel like he's going to be on the top power play all season. They're not going to mess around. Maybe they'll mess around with the top power play and swap out Dorofeyev for William Karlsson, but Hertl's going to be there. He's going to get his decent amount of ice time. So I feel like, since I like Pasternak more than Draisaitl by a little bit, I figured the drop maybe isn't as far from Barzal to Hertl, but of course that really depends on if you're going to tell me that Barzal is about to go off like crazy, because I'm sure I'm not the only person with him on my roster who was starting to get a little bit nervous that maybe I used a really high pick on someone who maybe is just going to go back to being the low shots 65 to 70 point guy he had been for the previous few years.
When you brought like this Barzal trade situation to me, my answer was like, you don't want to deal Matt Barzal. I think he looks like he's going to repeat everything he did last year. Like last year, Barzal had an amazing season, right? Outperformed his value, was drafted a little higher because of that. And at 5-on-5, it looks like Barzal's doing all the same things, just with bad variance. So that's like, so I actually started looking like, maybe I could buy low on Matt Barzal and see if I can benefit from this. With the caveat, by the way, like I just need to say this out loud. Last year, I notably remembered there were several players that I wanted to buy low on, and all of them stayed low. So like it's not a sure thing, right? When I say buy low, doesn't mean it's just like it's an opportunity that may or may not work out.
I'm telling you, sometimes the buy high, sell low strategy can work out for you. I know everyone wants to do buy low, sell high. Sometimes that you're a genius. Sometimes you play yourself. So it's something to consider. But yeah, you're saying that under the hood, Barzal's looking good. It's just, I'm basic, right? I'm like I've told you before, I'm a simple guy. I eat my cereal at night. I have my yogurt in the morning. And I like guys who take shots. And if Barzal is only taking 2 shots per game, giving me 0 shot games on an important Saturday, what are we doing?
Yeah. No, I feel you. And I think part of the thing that continues to be a bit of a challenge around Barzal too, and the reason like why I stopped like seeking out like a quick a buy low move, or at least paused it, was like the Isles power play situation still seems like kind of unsteady with Patrick Wall wanting to do his like 2 1A units. And like I saw a tweet like the top unit got 40 seconds and then they were subbed off at a whistle. It's like, come on, like give your top unit a little more of a chance. I don't know if they were tired, but the tweet seemed to imply that they could have stayed on. And this is like the coach being like, okay, that's it. Now to our other number one unit. So, I mean, that's just where things are at. So that's a bummer for Barzal. That's also a bummer for Bo Horvat, by the way, who has just 4 points in 8 games. 3 of those are goals. He has a single power play point. He's shooting the same amount as usual, a few shots per game, but the points aren't there yet. He's someone else that I think maybe you could buy low on. Also, something I'm noticing on Frozen Tools as I go through the Isles lineup, all their photos are like skewed funny. There's like or at least Barzal and Horvats are. I can't speak for the rest.
I need to look at this.
There's like a strange, stretchy effect. It's like, do you remember the year that all the Sens pictures were taken with like a fishbowl lens?
No.
So like
That's
the whole
fun.
league had like, your standard uniform screenshot, and then everyone from Ottawa had this like weird effect applied to them. It was
funny.
Pretty classic Ottawa.
Well, hey, I'm looking now at Kyle Palmieri's screenshot, and I got to admit, that one looks good. And
it does.
He's a chiseled, handsome guy.
There's a little like too much space above his head, though.
Yeah, that is strange. They could have used that space more efficiently, but the stat line is looking good for Palmieri. The picture's looking good in the stat line. He's got 2 straight games with a goal and an assist. Palmieri maybe is going to get back on the top power play like he was at the end of last year when he was doing well with all these crazy maneuvers. I think at the end of the day, what makes sense to me, and what do I know, right? But I would say, hear me out, Brian, Barzal, okay, Horvat, Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri, Noah Dobson. Power play 1. Boom. I don't know if this is like...
That's it.
I think
that
I've
should
nailed
be it. You've done it. Hire this man.
Someone reach out to Patrick Waugh and maybe suggest that. I like Siplikov, but get out of here with this silliness. So, take a look. Palmieri, like the Islanders, I think I mentioned yesterday on Match and Maximizer. Actually, I know I did. The Islanders have a good schedule next week. 4 games, not including the somewhat busy Saturday. So if Palmieri's out there, I'd grab him. Like, it's unsustainable, of course. 4 points the last 2 games with only 4 shots. You don't have to say it, Brian, but like he's good. He's Kyle Palmieri, right? He's not a nobody. He's going to do something for you in 4 games.
You would hope so, and sometimes the problem with Kyle Palmieri is you're like, sure, that's true, and then he does nothing for you in 4 games. I mean, right. the shots are going in lately. He's got 4 goals on his last 14 shots, which is like, that's fine in an early season sample. But yeah, I'm with you, Elon, about the power play time. I'd love to see him get a little more deployment in this moment of opportunity.
Okay, so next up, let's do another cold streak, Brian. I was not expecting to be bringing up Wyatt Johnston at this point in the season as a cold streak. I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I really felt like this was going to be a big year for him, and it's still early. He had a good start to the year, Wyatt Johnston. He had points in his first 5 games, but next 4 games, nothing. It's not like Dallas isn't scoring goals, but it seems like all the goals are going to Duchesne and Tyler Seguin. It's like, what year is this, right? It's all the guys who were superstars, like when we started keeping Karlsson, that are getting all the points in Dallas lately. But let's focus on Wyatt Johnston. And I see that he's still on the top power play. If you look at the lines for Dallas, they're not exactly what we predicted, right? Like they've been going with Hintz, Robertson, and Logan Stankoven. I thought that was going to be Wyatt Johnston's spot, but Johnston is playing with Jamie Benn and Dodonov, just like he did last year. So yeah, Johnston has taken that Joe Pavelski spot on the top power play, but I was expecting top line and top power play. So maybe that's the missing ingredient. We have Johnston with a high pick in our Dynasty League. Stankoven's not going anywhere, right? So I don't know. Maybe I was wrong to think this was a guaranteed top line, top power play guy. But as far as 1-year leagues go, like how much leash are you giving to Wyatt Johnston? Like I doubt we're saying to drop him now, but like I said, pointless in his last 4. Are we expecting just to bounce back soon? Like you're not even thinking about him being like someone you're considering letting go of?
I'm not considering letting go of Wyatt Johnston.
I agree, by the way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, at 5-on-5 this season, he's only shooting 6%, but he's still doing great with shooting. And he's used to shooting 13%. So 5 on 5. In the meantime, Johnston's making up for the low shooting percentage with a bunch of secondary assists on a team 12% on ice shooting percentage. I'd buy low on Johnston. I don't. He's someone I'm into. So I think that's the full answer.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think that's fair. He's still taking some shots, so something will go in soon. I still like him while he's on the top power play. Yeah, I'll just mention Matt Duchene now up to 11 points in his last 9 games after he had 2 goals against the Blackhawks and 3 points against the Bruins in the previous game. Tyler Seguin on that line with Matt Duchene up to now 8 points in 6 games himself with 2 goals, 3 assists in his last 3 games. He missed a couple of games, but Seguin is looking incredible, right? Like back to like the vintage Seguin of old, except for not that many shots. I guess that's the big difference between Seguin now and Seguin then. But he is figuring out his way to get points. And yeah, they're helping Mason Marchment have a good year. Obviously, a lot of that is just from the start. But yeah, that line is looking pretty good. And I think kudos to anyone who drafted Duchene or Seguin because you probably got them super late in your drafts. And they're, like I'm sure, Brian, you'll throw some cold water and say these are unsustainable runs because they're not shooting too much. But for the cost you spent on these guys, I think you enjoy it. And yeah, I assume like you're not going to say like, whatever, like they're going to be like point per game guys, but I'm just like, it's exciting to see these names do well.
Yeah, it's nice to see Matt Duchene and Tyler Seguin doing their thing. Their line saw good luck a lot last year, and this year Duchene and Seguin are still seeing some good luck, but also they look like a little better too. Small sample, but we'll see, which might help mitigate any effects of regression if the luck does start to disappear. Maybe they're earning their luck. And in any case, good for Duchene, good for Seguin. They both are very, very talented hockey players, and it's funny. Like we considered them first line stars for a large chunk of their careers, and now they're playing like a secondary role in Dallas, but they're scoring like they could still do a primary role. So good for them. I also, in Dallas, before I move on, just going to shout out Logan Stankoven. You mentioned Wyatt Johnson not on that top line. Logan Stankoven is on the top line where, funnily enough, he's not producing, but he is producing from the second power play with 2 power play points in his last 2 games. So there's another name that might be more available than Johnston, Duchene, and Seguin on your waiver wire.
Oh, wow. Yeah, if you could get Stankoven, jump on that for sure. Over in New York, we've had a couple of people wanting us to talk about Zibanejad. He hasn't been like so terrible, to be honest. Like he has 6 points in 8 games, pointless in his last couple. I don't know if we need to do too deep a dive. I do think he's like not the point per game guy. He seemed like he might be for a couple years. Like last year, he fell down to 73 points. I assume he's going to be kind of the same. Here's my question, Brian, just for fun. Alexis Lafreniere continues his breakout year. He had an assist in the last game. He had a goal the previous game. We're up to 8 points in 8 games for Lafreniere. Are we at a point where we would consider, if you got this offer, like would you move a top power play Zibanejad for a currently not top power play Lafreniere? Like I feel like there's a decent chance that could swap anyways in their roles, and maybe even with their roles staying the same. Maybe Lafreniere just playing with Panarin and being like incredible on his own might be enough to be just as good as Zibanejad when it's all said and done at the end of the year.
I would not flip Zibanejad for Lafreniere. Like I don't think like that's a hot take from you, and I love it. Like I get it with Zibanejad. Like we looked at him a couple weeks ago and we said, like it's not looking great. And Zibanejad also only played 15 minutes on Saturday night. And while you said Elon on the season, 6 points in 8 games, I think you were like we'd be unhappy if it stayed that way.
And by the way, I should mention 3 of those points came in one game against Detroit. So you take out that one game, and we're looking at 3 points in 7 games.
Yeah, and that's part of Zibanejad getting this reputation for inconsistency, right? Over the last 2-3 seasons, while Lafreniere played 5 more minutes than Zibanejad on Saturday night, he's still outside looking in to the top power play. 8 points in 8 games, though. That is coming, and the reason I wouldn't make the deal, Elon, 4 goals on 19 shots for Lafreniere, which is double his usual shooting percentage, which would put him basically, if you regress that, it puts him in the same territory as Zibanejad. And what's the difference between them? Well, Lafreniere playing more time on the hole, Zibanejad playing more time on power play 1. I'll take the power play 1 time for the moment. And I don't feel if you're going to try that, you got to ask for more than just Lafreniere.
Okay, well, I don't necessarily disagree, but I do think the time is coming soon where Lafreniere is going to be worth more than Zibanejad. So I don't know. Maybe if you're in a keeper league, like maybe that's the time. Now's the time to do it and take a short term slight hit. Like Lafreniere, just got this big contract. I think a lot of people are saying it's going to be a great value deal for the Rangers. It's going really well. Lafreniere's having the season that we thought Byfield was going to have, but that we also kind of thought Lafreniere was going to have. A couple quick names I'll throw out on the Rangers while we're here. Capo Caco, whatever. Like he had a 3-point game against Montreal, which is boosting his numbers, but nice to see him doing something. 6 points in 8 games, same stats as Zibanejad so far. So I don't know if it'll keep up, but nice to see Capo Caco being somewhat relevant. And then Brian, this guy, Will Cooley, who plays in the bottom 6, he has 7 points in 8 games. He scored yesterday against Anaheim. His hits are incredible every single game. By the way, this is spelled Cuyle for people who are mixing him up with Logan Cooley on Utah. But Will Cooley, if your league is a bangers league that counts hits, you probably already know who he is, and you're like, why haven't you mentioned him like 2 shows ago? But like the fact that he's also showing some offensive abilities, and yeah, he's not going to be like whatever this pace is out to. Like he's not going to be a 72-point guy, but if you can have like a 40 to 50-point guy that's hitting like 4 times a game, you want to be all over that. So I would have been remiss to not mention Will Cooley when talking about the Rangers.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to Kako, that line, Cooley, Kako, and Hedel, has been like legitimately extremely good. Like their expected goals rates as a line are elite in the time they've spent together. Kako himself, by the way, doing more shot attempts than ever before. He's playing more per night. His has a high-end expected goals rate for himself for the first time ever. When you brought Kako up, I was very ready to shrug my shoulders. But I don't know, Elon. I'm getting sucked back in here to thinking maybe there's a chance that Capo Kako can be a productive fantasy asset in the NHL.
I mean, especially if he can get a fresh start or like figure out, at some point someone's got to give him a shot in the top 6, right? So I'd love to see him go somewhere else. We have him in our dynasty team. I don't know if you recall. At one point we were thinking we can call ourselves Kako or something, do something with that, because we also have Nicholas Kako, the goalie prospect of Seattle. So I think we're still trying to workshop that name. Right now our name is still Brelon. At some point we have to come up with a name. I don't know if Kako like is what it's going to be, but it's an option. Let's do an ad break here, actually. Okay, I'll come back. So I mentioned Will Cooley and his insane hits. Let's go to Vancouver, where there's another maybe like clone. I don't know if we've ever seen these two guys in the same room, but Kiefer Sherwood over on the Vancouver Canucks, similar to Will Cooley, playing in the bottom 6, but getting points, 5 points in 7 games now. Sherwood scored a goal against Pittsburgh yesterday on Saturday. He actually has 5 points in his last 4 games. Kiefer Sherwood is going off, but like the real mind-blowing thing, and that's already pretty mind-blowing, but I'm seeing the last 4 games, here are Kiefer Sherwood's hits: 6, 12, 9, and 10. Let's do that math. What is that? 29 plus 6, 35 hits in his last 4 games. That's insane. This is the new Lauzon. Plus he's getting points. So again, if you're in a bangers league especially, and also Sherwood is getting shots. Is this like a guy in Cupful like we should be all over? Like this is these hits.
Yeah.
Like normally in Cupful, by the way, a hit is only worth 0.25, so they're not like worth that much. But if you get 10 of them, that's actually not that bad. That's 2.5 points right there just from your hits.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be like that's a solid floor. Like Sherwood, just looking at his peripherals, 10 shots, 27 hits in his last 3 games, and that goes with 2 goals and 2 assists. It's cool. And like you brought up Lauzon, who like snuck into relevance, if for those who noticed at times last year, and I wonder if Sherwood is doing the same. Like depending on what you need and depending on how depleted your waiver wire and free agency pool is and scheduled and whatever, like Vancouver plays Monday, Wednesday this week. I don't know. If you can get like 20 hits out of that, then it's a start.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to get Kiefer Sherwood, like there's also, we're seeing that he can get you some, actual points. Like goals and assists are coming right now. Obviously that won't keep up completely. He's playing on the 3rd line with Heinen and Bluger, no power play, but he's still figuring out a way to get some points. Though another guy that might be available to you if you don't want to go for the hits, but you want to go for the deployment and also some points recently. Connor Garland, we have to mention him. He's been playing with Elias Pettersson and Nils Höglander, and Garland has been playing on the top power play with Besser, Pettersson, Miller, and Quinn Hughes. That's right, Jake DeBrusk, our new long-term contract signee, already bumped from the top power play, and it's Connor Garland. This is what Vancouver does. They brought in Elias Lindholm last year, if you recall, and then he got bumped from the top power play pretty quickly, and now I'm seeing Connor Garland has bumped DeBrusk. We'll see how long it lasts, but in the meantime, if Garland is out there for you, he's got 4 points in his last 3 games. He was once good. Remember that time when Connor Garland was like, we were obsessed with him and he was like going
In
off
Arizona.
for Arizona. Yeah, he was looking like, oh, man, this is a future superstar. Then he went to Vancouver and was really excited. And then he's sort of just been super mad the whole time. Like, not terrible, but like, between like 45, 50 points. But he's got 7 points in 7 games now. If Connor Garland holds this deployment, playing with Pettersson and even strengthen the power play, like you said, at least grab maybe for the Monday, Wednesday next week. So yeah. What do you think about Garland? And then I guess on the flip side, maybe I'll also give you the sad prompt of having to talk about your guy Jake DeBrusk, who I remember begging you to pick Paterka, but you whatever. This is new. This is a new day. We got to deal with our Brian's doing really well in couple 3-0, 2-0. Oh yeah, you're battling to see if you're gonna. How's your matchup looking, by the way?
I'm up 6. And it's my Batherson versus their Sanderson and Giroux.
Okay.
To end with 2 periods left in
Very
that
exciting.
game. Yeah.
Well,
so
a
goal,
guy.
a goal can end it either way. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Paterka scored some goals this week, but anyway, Jake DeBrusk though, hasn't been paying off. Only 4 points in 7 games, and now off the top power play. So yeah, what are your thoughts on DeBrusk and Garland at this point?
DeBrusk had a 7-hit game, actually, where he got an assist. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And that came off a 5-hit game where he had 3 shots and an assist. And I was like, okay, like maybe this can still work. And then DeBrusk followed that up with no shots, cardio session early in the week. And yeah, didn't do much against Pittsburgh either. You mentioned that I took DeBrusk over Paterka. That was like, if I waited another 2 hours to make that pick, I probably would have gone Paterka. Like the star was rising in that moment for Paterka. I think he became like a super hot commodity. Like there was a spike in his value over the course.
I was talking about him to you all summer. I kept on telling you all summer. He's going to go off. He's going to have a big year.
But I thought he would come back to me.
Oh, I see.
7 picks later. And I read that
strategic.
Wrong. I took DeBrusk. I made a mistake. And it's a bummer. Like now I'm looking at DeBrusk as someone who I might just drop, which, it took him a little too early for someone I want to be dropping, but I also don't have time to, like, Jake DeBrusk, if you're not on the top power play, I'm not that interested. And there just hasn't been, there hasn't been a lot to like. It's been very uninspiring at 5-on-5, Jake DeBrusk. So yeah, I'm pretty sure in a cupful type league, I'm going to hold him for Monday, see how that goes. I'd love to hold him for Wednesday too, but we'll see how dispiriting his Monday performance is. For Connor Garland, yeah, he's the beneficiary here. We'll see how long he can stay up in his deployment, but he's pointed in 6 of 7 games this year. He's had 2 or more shots in 6 of 7 games this year. Connor Garland quietly doing quite well, and he's someone who should be rostered more so than Jake DeBrusk.
Right. Of course, it could change. Like, DeBrusk does have the contract. I wouldn't be surprised if DeBrusk gets another shot at some point. It's just a matter of how patient you want to be. I'll mention quickly Elias Pettersson waking up, points in 3 straight. Just 1 point, though, in each of those last 3. So he still needs a couple multi-point games to get to Brian's expected 90-point pace from the last episode. But it's a start. We're getting going here. We're revving up.
I had a trade-off route for Pettersson, and I think this 3-game point streak, like, it sat for a few days, for like 2 or 3 days. I'm like, but it was rejected after he pointed on Saturday night. So I think that he's still not shooting though. Like, I'm actually not that mad. I don't love that Pettersson is still not shooting. This is someone who's averaged 3 shots per game on average of his last 2 seasons. This year in 7 games, Pettersson has taken 1 shot in 4 of them. He's taken 2 shots in 2 of them. And just once has he taken more than 2 shots, and he only took 3 of them. So a lot of I want to see much more shooting from Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's go to our next cold streak here. Another top line power play. another top line, top power play guy that's just not doing anything with it. Gabe Vilardi, what the heck? Like he's playing with, Connor and Shifley, but yet only 4 points in 8 games. Only 1 point in his last 4 games. It was a goal. It just feels like how could you drop like a Gabe Vilardi with this deployment, but at the same time, it's just so. This is the tricky part of fantasy, right? Like he's like a Barrett. This is another Barrett Hayton, basically. He's like getting the perfect deployment. You think it should be going well, but I feel like Velarde should be even better because he like Winnipeg seems to be scoring more goals lately. Like Winnipeg won 5-3 against Calgary yesterday. Nothing from Velarde. A couple shots. So yeah, how much longer would you be hanging on to this guy? I feel like for me, it would just be like, I can't drop a guy with this deployment, but I can see it being frustrating.
Yeah, I think you've summed it up well. And one of the frustrating pieces for Velarde this season is that he's seen a big increase in role. He's playing 2.5 more minutes each night at 5-on-5, but he's shooting less. He had 2.5 shots per game last season. Velarde now just has 10 shots in 8 games, despite more ice time, like a big jump in ice time and top power play deployment. There's some conflicting messages here for Gabe Vilardi. At the same time, he has pointed on every goal scored at 5-on-5 while he's on the ice, and that's just 2 of them over 8 games and 51 shots, which means while Vilardi's on the ice, the Jets are shooting less than 4%, which is going to improve, and Vilardi should get some help that way, even without shots. I still think Vilardi can have a good season, but it might be spottier than we would have wanted it to be.
Yeah, and it's wild because imagine if you have Velarde, then you're seeing like free agents or like lesser guys on other teams. Like Nino Niederreiter keeps producing, Mason Appleton, Adam Lowry, and then Cole Perfetti is doing really well. Like there's so many players on Winnipeg that don't have the deployment that are doing like so much better. So I can imagine the frustration growing even more. Neil Pionk, by the way, having a nice little run. He's another guy kind of like Connor Garland. We used to be obsessed with on the podcast. He seems so good and then just has slowly sort of faded away into a guy we barely talk about. But nice little run for Pionk. Let's go now to the next cold streak. And this is definitely still up to date, even though I wrote this before Philly's game today. I wrote Philly goalies. They are bad. Philly is having a lot of trouble. Ersson, like Ersson seems fine. Like I feel like Sam Ersson could be a solid enough like tandem guy. But that said, he's had a couple bad games in a row now. 5 goals against Minnesota, 4 goals against Washington. He got the win, by the way, in that game against Minnesota. That was a wild game. Philly won 7-5. But Ersson, we're looking at 874 save percentage overall. Fedotov had been like so terrible, just like unplayable, kind of like what Jari has been, except without the track record. So today, Philly went in and called up their guy, Alexei Kolosov, who was someone who came over from Russia. There's a whole like bunch of drama about whether like he came last year to the AHL, and then it looked like maybe he wasn't even going to come at all. But whatever, he came, joined the AHL team, he got called up just to get blown up today. 4 goals against on 24 shots against the Habs in the 4-3 loss. So Philly they're in it again. I feel bad for them. They did have a good goalie at some point. That guy's not coming back, and now they're stuck with all these losers. I think Ersson's fun. You know what I mean? So I don't really know what the takeaway is. Like I'm not interested in any of them, not even Ersson, because I feel like Ersson might get some volume, but I think he can't handle it. So he'll just get blown up all the time. These other 2 guys, Fedotov and Kolosov, they're not cutting it. So I mean, maybe give Kolosov another game, but obviously not a great start for him.
Yeah, no one in Philly is doing well in the crease, and the team is doing like reasonably well in front of them. Like the Flyers are not far outside the top 10 in expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. So I'd like to see better from their goalies, but we just haven't. And I'm with you, Elon. I was going to add Kolosov today, but he wasn't available in Yahoo because he's they put him on waivers once he enters the league. And he just wasn't available. So I ended up with Primo, and that's great. That worked out for me. But yeah, I don't know what I'm saying here, except I'm with you. I don't trust anyone in the Flyers net right now.
Speaking of players on Philly who I wouldn't trust, but I guess every once in a while maybe he can still do something. What the heck was that Sean Couturier game against Minnesota? A guy who has been doing nothing all year, had 1 assist in his first 7 games. Then he put up 3 goals and 2 assists against Minnesota. Just an insane performance from Sean Couturier, who seems like he's like a shell of his former self. Like I'm waiting for now Pacioretty on Toronto to have 3 goals and 2 assists or something. That would be as surprising to me. And then today it looks like back to normal. No points, 2 shots for Couturier. But to be fair, like he did play 20 minutes today, which is actually his highest ice time of the season. He's been getting good deployment, like at least going into the game. The Flyers were going with Couturier centering Michkov and Konechny, which is the clear top line. Sad for me with Owen Tippett, who I thought was going to maybe be a top liner, but regardless, Tippett actually is doing pretty well lately. But yeah, Couturier, this has got to be just a mirage, right? Or I don't know, though, if there's anyone who's going to believe in it, it's going to be you. But like, I mean, you can't argue with top line, like, you know, right? And this a 5-point game. He's up to now 6 points in 9 games on the season. It's a respectable season now with this one game.
Yeah, like Mika Zibanejad style. It's a totally different
same.
situation, of course. Yeah, no, you know what? I was really curious to see what Couturier would do to follow up from yesterday's big night, and he did. He took 2 shots. He threw 4 hits. He was involved. He was engaged. And actually, a big thing that I was curious to see is his ice time tonight. He played over 20 minutes against Montreal on Sunday. And that's a good sign. Like, he is not someone who's had a lot of trust or opportunity or time. So, hey, good for him for getting another shot. I'm curious to see if he can make something of it. But even me, the biggest Sean Couturier booster, is not going to ignore the possibility that within 3 games he's toiling again on the 4th line.
Yeah. Okay. But it's fun to see. And, you know, be definitely a guy you should add to your watch list at this point after a game like that and with this current deployment. Next cold streak. This one I think is easy, but I'll be curious to hear what you think. Trevor Zegras is like just nothing. Like he's doing nothing. He has 2 points in 8 games this season. The only reason you'd be holding him is because he like did a cool like Michigan goal a couple years ago, and he seemed really exciting at the time. Like last year, in the limited time Zegras got, he only had 15 points in 31 games. Now, like I said, 2 points in 8 games this season. Is there any reason to hold, or is this like an obvious drop and people are like snoozing, to take out our old vernacular? Like, are you snoozing big time if you still have Trevor Zegras on your team?
Yeah, I think you are. I'm past the expectation that Zegras is on the cusp of breaking out. Either something needs to change significantly in Anaheim, or he needs to change the team he plays for. He's not like consistently. The year started off all right. Like he had 12 shots through his first 4 games and 2 points, which was promising. But now in the last 4 games, Zegras has just 6 shots, and his power play time seems to be dwindling on a team where he shouldn't really have to compete for power play time. So this is why I'm ready. Like Zegras, I think, has a bright future ahead, but I don't know that's going to be with this iteration of the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah. And like I'm not even that confident he has that bright future ahead. I guess it's possible.
Damn.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
But some guy who does have a bright present and future, I think the clear top guy you want on Anaheim, Troy Terry, continues to point. He's got a point in every game of the season except for the first one. So that's 7 points in his last 7 games. Way to go, Troy Terry. It's like Anaheim doesn't score often, but when they score, you know you're going to see Terry in there. It's kind of like Granlund over in San Jose. There's a guy in my allied chat, Brad, who was like regretting drafting Troy Terry like the second after he drafted him, like 1 game into the season. He was like, "Oh no, like he's not getting the ice time I was hoping for," and but hopefully Brad is feeling better now. I have Terry as well. I was like, I think we're gonna be okay. And so far, so good. Brian, you have Terry as well. We're enjoying the Trevor Terry. Trevor Terry. I don't know what I'm doing. Troy Terry, big party.
I'm enjoying the Troy Terry ride. I'm like really anxious about staying on the Troy Terry ride. Like that's what I don't want to get caught on the Troy Terry ride when it stops. But he is playing on, well, I'm not sure the Ducks really have a top line. So it's hard to say top line. I'm also not certain the Ducks have a top power play. So it's hard to say exactly. Like Terry and Zegras have like this, their deployment isn't so different. But yeah, at least Terry is doing things. 7 points in 8 games, as you mentioned, 4 goals on 20 shots. It's nice to see him shooting on a regular basis and, well, pointing on a regular basis. So yeah, I think like Troy Terry, like I feel good about having him, but he's one of the guys who's doing well that I feel I feel this like intensifying anxiety with every game this keeps going. I'm just like waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I mean, yeah, he's not going to be point per game, but I think Troy Terry is going to be fine. And like, I like with the Anaheim off day schedule, he's someone that I feel like he's like the top guy on the team. He's their guy right now. And I mentioned Mikhail Granlund. I feel like I can't talk about him too much. I've been drooling about him all season. They drooled about him on short shifts on Thursday. But yeah, since they recorded that episode, another big game. He scored a goal and had 5 shots yesterday in that loss to Vegas. So we're up to now 10 points in 9 games from Kyle Granlund. If there's a sleuth out there, I have a stat I want someone to find for me. Okay, Brian, I don't think you're going to be able to find this off the top of your head, but maybe someone can find this. What is the most points a player has ever had in the season? What is the most points a player has ever had in a season on a team that was the lowest scoring team in the NHL that season? So like you look for each season, you look at who's the lowest scoring team, how many points did their top scorer get, what's the highest point total from that guy. Right now, San Jose is the lowest scoring team in the league, and Mikhail Granlund is pacing for 91 points with his 10 points in 9 games. I wonder if that's a record that he can chase this year, because I don't think San Jose is going to score a lot of goals, but like I said about Terry, but even more so, really just seems like they don't score, but when they do score, Granlund scores. That's just how it goes over in San Jose.
Yeah, which, like you said, is either worth something or it's not worth something. Like, it's nice to see someone succeed, but when there's not enough anything else happening on that team to really succeed, that's the concern.
I'm not concerned, by the way. 3.8 shots per game. Man,
yeah, no, that's great.
From Barzal.
He's the guy. It's funny, though. Like in San Jose, I was looking for value in the waiver wire the other day, and I saw Fabian Zetterlund, and then I took a look at the numbers I generally look at, and I was I was not pleased to see what I saw, and I did not make a move to add Fabian Zetterlund. But Mikhail Granlund, at this moment, stands alone, I guess, with Jake Wallman as the rosterable San Jose Sharks.
Brian, you didn't read my next note here, or maybe you did, and you're doing a perfect segue for me. Have you noticed that this guy, Jack Thompson, has taken over on the top power play lately on San Jose? And I definitely want to ask you here, who the heck is Jack Thompson? Why is he taking top power play from Jake Wallman? And maybe do you need to reassess your opinion that Jake Wallman is the guy you want to have? I also think, by the way, Eklund is someone you probably want to have, but that's another conversation. But yeah, who is this Jack Thompson? What is he doing? Should we be paying attention to this person?
Who is this Jack
also
Thompson?
Toffoli. Also Toffoli's rosterable, of course. Come on, Brian. All
Toffoli?
Right.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. That's obvious. My
and
bad.
Celebrini when he's back. Okay.
Jack Thompson. I'm doing this on the fly. I'm just going to be upfront about that. Jack Thompson was drafted by Tampa in the 2020 NHL entry draft in the 3rd round, 93rd overall. He's 22 years old. And has played some time in the minors in Tampa's system with some success. Last season, he played 46 games with the Syracuse Crunch. He had 32 points. Those are offensive defenseman numbers. And then this season with San Jose Barracuda, Thompson had 9 points in 16 games. No, sorry, that was after being traded last season in the AHL. Anyway, it's there is, the thing with Wallman is we were saying that so long as there's no one in San Jose with offensive acumen, he's going to get a shot at quarterbacking the top unit. I guess we all looked past the possibility that Jack Thompson was going to get substantial playing time this year. Like, I still am not really sure who he is, but he's seeing top power play time, and he has 3 power play points in his last 3 games. So he's someone who he doesn't shoot a lot. That's not great. But I think this is as relevant it is for anybody diving into the waiver wire for power play points as it is for anybody who's holding Jake Wallman and saying, like, when's the fun going to start? He has had 3 or more shots per game, Jake Wallman, in most of his games this season, and only once has he had less than 2 shots per game in the 9 he's played. He's also hitting, he's blocking. Jake Wallman is filling all the peripheral categories the way we were hoping, but the points haven't come, and I'm not sure that they're going to, especially with this latest development.
Yeah, so 4 games for San Jose next week if anyone wants to take a dive and take a chance on Jack Thompson here. Okay. So 4 games this week? Whatever. I'll just keep going. Okay, whatever. Okay. All right, Brian, last cold streak I'm going to throw at you for this episode. Another guy that we were like super hot on from the start. If you recall, I brought up how we were like excited about what Huberdeau was doing, and then he quickly cooled off. I was also really excited about the start of the season that Teuvo Teravainen had. If you recall, a couple episodes ago, I was losing my mind about how like this guy's incredible. He had that 4-point game against Edmonton. He followed it up with a 2-assist game a couple games later. Since then, 0 points in the last 4 games for Teuvo Teravainen. Only 3 shots in his last 3 games. He's still playing on the top line and top power play with Connor Bedard. But yeah, starting to be like what he was in Carolina, where I'd be like, I like him. He's Teuvo Teravainen. He's good. Then you'd be like, I don't know. But of course, your thing was always like, if he's not top power play. Now he is top power play, but he is pointless. Is this a guy who we're still going to give a bit of a leash for as long as he's in this spot? I guess it's kind of similar to the Gabe Vilardi situation. You know, it's just a matter of like the deployments there. Do you just have to hold on indefinitely because either he should just lose that deployment at some point if he's actually bad, and otherwise he should turn it around at some point?
It's a great question, Elon. I think for me the question is Teuvo Teravainen someone you need to hold on to at all costs? And I think the answer to that is no. You don't need to hold on to Teuvo Teravainen even through a cold streak. I don't think he's someone who's going to hit the wire and everyone's going to jump all over, especially when nothing's happening. I'm looking at his 5-on-5 numbers. They're unimpressive. Which has always been the case with Teravainen. And you're right. My line has always been, if he's on the top power play, you want him. And I'm being proven wrong with that. So I don't know what to say about Teuvo Teravainen. Elon, this is like, I showed my faith. I was like, yeah, this is where you want him. And I'm going to admit to wanting him too. And he hasn't done very much for us lately. So the one thing I'm trying to just quickly check is how many power play opportunities Chicago has had in the last few games. And I'm wondering if like they've had fewer than usual. Like that would be like
You're
my
getting
own.
super quiet. I guess when you're like, this is your research voice.
Yeah, no, and I'm looking, and he had 3.5 minutes against Dallas, 6.5 minutes against Nashville, and almost 6 minutes against Vancouver on the power play.
He's getting the chances.
Yeah, and the Chicago power play looks like they're doing well too. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I assume Teravainen won't be this cold all season while he's on the top power play, so you could hang on a little while longer, see what happens. Like I'm not going to totally give up on him, but if you need to make a quick move and he's the clear bottom of your roster, then I wouldn't hesitate to have to cut him loose.
Yeah, I think I'd still kind of hesitate. I don't know. If he's dropped in my league, I think I'm going to go for him. I know I threw to you with the whole opposite thing, but I'm just trying to make interesting content here. But I still I've always had a soft spot for Teravainen. If he's playing with Bedard, I like him. By the way, Bedard, goals in 2 straight, hasn't been having the explosive season I was hoping for. Kind of similar to Wyatt Johnston. Like he's fine, but not like going nuts like I kind of thought he would. We'll see. Obviously, it's still early. And actually, when I was talking about Granlund and Terry being like these guys who like when the team scores, it's always them. Like Bedard is the prototypical version of that. He's the prototype. Like Bedard is like the guy who it's like when the team scores, it's almost for sure going to be Bedard involved. So we'll see if he can start bringing some of his friends along with him, including Teuvo Teravainen. Brian, with that, we've gotten to the end of what I was planning for today's show. There are some other like hot streaks I could throw out there. I'll just mention really quickly some names. Okay, Tage Thompson, he's doing his thing. Owen Power's been hot lately. Natchez over in Carolina on a nice hot streak. Jake Middleton is getting a ton of blocks if you need blocks. Definitely take a look at Jake Middleton, who's also getting some points over in Minnesota. But I think we've done well here, Brian, in a couple of hours going through the league. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I'm talking to the listener now. I hope Brian enjoyed it too, of course. And the people in the live chat, I've been having a blast. If you want to get more content like this, you know what to do. You got to subscribe to the podcast. You'll get all the episodes. I just learned something. We were chatting on the Discord about Kevin listened to a podcast all about how like you can do well as a podcast and get highly ranked on Apple. It turns out you got to get people to subscribe. So we'd really appreciate it if you can just subscribe, get all those episodes auto-downloaded, and you'll get, our mega shows on Sundays. You'll get my matchup maximizer that I dropped yesterday where I looked at the schedule for next week. I think that was a fun romp through a bunch of teams with 4 games, very different than the one from a couple weeks ago when the schedule was bad. Then we've got short shifts coming up. Like I said, we're going to have Lewis and Trev on Tuesday, and then the classic Jeremy Shams on Thursday. So it's going to be a really fun week. Get all the episodes by subscribing to Keeping Karlsson. We have our Patreon going strong. We're having a lot of fun over on the Discord. Also, maybe it might feel good to you to support a show that you listen to. And you can also get on the waitlist for the cupful. So check out the Keeping Karlsson Patreon for all of the perks that we offer over at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. But with that, let's cue the outro music. And Brian, why don't why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters, Richard, Paul, Top Cheese, Richard, Paul, Top Cheese, Roman, Michael, Brian, Patrick, Aaron, Philip, Sammy, Andrea, Zach, Tom, Ryan, David, Ricard, and Patty. Shout out to Kevin A. Bear and Jay Brew for doing all they're doing to keep the cupful running smoothly. Thank you to Shams and Elon for all the retweets at GameDayTweets.com. Thanks to our aforementioned Short Shifts crew. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Puckpedia, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
Great job as always, Brian. Like I said, always fun getting to break down hockey and fantasy hockey with you every Sunday. A true pleasure in my life. But yeah, thanks everyone again for listening. And Brian, while we await another week of fantasy action, I guess you're going to be awaiting this next hour or so of seeing if you're going to win your matchup. Good luck to you. But in the meantime, is there anything we could be doing to occupy our brains and our time?
Yeah, think about what you can do to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Nice. It's funny how like Patty is saying that Forsberg is lying down in the tunnel getting his skate fixed. Can't they just give him a new skate? Like, do they not just have backup skates? Like, why do they have to fix the skate? It's like when a player's stick breaks, they're not like, okay, he's going to go and get his
They're
hockey stick
warm,
fixed.
they're broken in.
Get a couple. You need
Yeah, but you put on an old, a new pair. It's probably cold inside. It's hard.
They should hire someone to like
walk around in each player's skates.
They should have for every player someone who has the same shoe size that can go around and skate around, so they're ready to go. Like as soon as a skate breaks, it seems silly. What if he had a shutout bid going? He'd lose the shutout because of this.
Yeah,
get a second pair of skates.
Equipment fails.
I have a lot of good ideas, I think, in this episode. I had that Islanders top power play idea, and now this like backup skate idea.
So many good ideas.
Yeah. All right, pal. Well,
all right.
Thanks everyone for joining us live.
Chat.
Great job. And good luck in your matchup, Brian. I guess you'll be messaging me. I'll be curious. So remind me again, who are we cheering for and cheering against?
We're cheering for Batherson and against Giroux and Sanderson, although that will hurt Patty. So I'm sorry, Patty.
Is there a way
but
you
it's
and Patty
you or
can
it's
both
me.
win? It can't be both?
I
Like
think
Patty is like the exact opposite?
I think if like Batherson scores and Giroux assists, I think we're happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can do that.
I think.
Let's see how Onyunian now 9 saves. I wonder if he's going to get the shutout.
Or maybe even if Batherson just like scores a bunch and hurts in Union. Like 6 goals for Batherson should do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm rooting for you and Patty. But I'll be honest, like as much as I think Patty's great, like Brian's the one that I talk to like a lot, so I'm probably rooting a little more for Brian. But I really wish there's a way for both of you to win.
Me too.
Nice?
I you know me, I want everyone to win.
To be fair, Patty is our first ever patron, and like I don't know, it's actually tough now that I think about it more. Who I'm rooting for more between you and Patty.
You know what? You think about it.
Okay, I'll let you both know. We'll just
I feel like part of your decision should be to go. Like, I feel like you one thing you might do, you being you, would like go check out both matchups and see like who's more likely to win and root for that person more.
Yeah, honestly though, I think I should just take advantage of this opportunity where my matchup is like decided and I get to relax. So probably I'll just go have some cereal and then check and see who won after the fact.
I think that's what I'll do too, minus the cereal.
Cool. All right. See you everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thanks everybody.